Sadly, thousands of people are reported missing every single day. While the majority of missing person cases get resolved, there's still a large number of people that are never seen again. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mountain disappearances. The mysterious disappearance of Esther Dingley. Esther Dingley was hiking alone through the Pyrenees Mountains this past November when she abruptly disappeared. Dingley, a 37-year-old from Durham, England, was trekking solo through the mountains from Spain to France and set to come home on November 25, 2020. The last communication she had with family was 3 days prior when she messaged her boyfriend via WhatsApp and sent him a selfie on top of a mountain. Dingley and her partner, Dan Colgate, are avid travelers and have spent the last 6 years adventuring around Europe. Just before her solo trek, their story of living the van life since 2014 was published by BBC News. Dingley had taken their camper van for her whole trip while Colgate stayed at a farm in the southwest of France. It has been over 2 weeks since she first went missing. Police opened up a missing persons case and have been circulating posters of Dingley around the area. Various mountain rescue units have conducted widespread searches but have been unsuccessful in locating her. They were forced to halt their searches due to poor weather conditions. Locals and authorities believe it likely that she fell into freezing waters and drowned or severely injured herself. They claim that accidents like that happen all year round, but especially in winter. They fear this is the reason why there is no trace of Dingley. The increased water depth and piling snow is hiding the body. There have been previous instances where bodies disappeared in the mountains during winter and then were found the following spring when the snow melted. Dingley was last seen by Spanish Olympic skier Marty Vigo del Arco and his girlfriend. On November 22nd around 3 p.m., they were trekking down from Pic de Sauvegarde, an 11-mile loop trail near the France-Spain border, when they came across a British woman. She was still ascending and asked for some fruit. This trail is recommended only for very experienced hikers and is best used from May to October. About an hour after the couple saw her, Dingley sent the mountaintop selfie to her boyfriend. It's worrisome that she was still climbing up that late in the afternoon. It means she was on a difficult trail while in the dark. Her family are concerned of the possibility that her disappearance was not a hiking accident but an abduction. On November 19th, Dingley received a ride from an unknown hiker, which she wrote about on her blog. Police are investigating all leads and possibilities and are searching for this hiker to question him. While they will continue to explore all avenues, the lead French investigator, Captain Jean-Marc Bondonero, rejected the possibility of kidnapping, claiming that it was near impossible to be abducted while on the mountain. The case has been turned over to a specialized judicial unit in France to continue to investigate those odds. As winter approaches and the weather turns colder, authorities fear that their searches will stop. If heavy snow continues to fall, it could take months until it's safe enough for rescue teams to traverse the mountains and resume their search. Teresa Gibson disappears from the Great Smoky Mountains. On October 8, 1976, Teresa Lynn Gibson, also known as Trenny, went on a field trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She traveled with 35 to 40 of her classmates from Bearden High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. Despite being surrounded with a group and other hikers, 16-year-old Trenny mysteriously disappeared from the park. The field trip was odd to begin with. There were almost 40 students, yet only one teacher to supervise them, plus the bus driver. According to some students, they were not even informed of their field trip destination until they arrived at the park. Only then did they find out that they would be hiking about 1.8 miles from Clingman's Dome to Andrews Bald, and then returning to the Forney Ridge Trail. When students began their hike, they split up into smaller groups based on their walking speed. Throughout the day, Trenny walked at different paces with various groups of classmates. However, at some point in the afternoon, she mysteriously vanished. She was last seen by classmates near Clingman's Dome at 3 p.m. They were hiking along a fairly steep trail with thick vegetation and sudden drop-offs. Apparently, she glimpsed something on the right side of the trail and left the path. That was the last time anyone saw her. The weather and fall foliage made it difficult for search and rescue to use helicopters and inspect the trail. Instead, they used tracking dogs to pick up her scent. There were around 6 teams of bloodhounds and German shepherds that searched and picked up her scent near the juncture of the Clingman's Dome Trail and the Appalachian Trail. They followed her scent past Clingman's Dome Tower up until 1.5 miles from a newfound gap. The scent then disappeared along the roadside. Multiple theories have arisen, and suspects investigated. Some believe Trenny was in Clingman's Dome Observation Tower while the initial search was being conducted because it was never inspected. Once the searchers left, she traveled to the roadside where she got into a car, either voluntarily or against her will. There are some reports of cigarettes and beer cans found along the roadside. Trenny's classmate Robert Simpson was implicated as a suspect since her hairbrush was discovered in his car. Police quickly dismissed the idea. Trenny's parents Robert and Hope Gibson informed the police of a previous break-in by a young man whom Mrs. Gibson shot at. After being shot, he threatened to hurt their daughter. Although the authorities investigated this man, there were no leads for them to follow. Searches were conducted extensively through October and then again from April 18th to May 5, 1977, but to no avail. Searches resumed in 1981 as well, but they never found anything. Kim Pouncey, a friend of Trenny's, gave an interview in November 2017 for an episode of Compilation Unsolved, where she expressed her doubt of an abduction. She believes Trenny left of her own accord and had someone waiting for her in the park, that she had planned it because she wanted to leave and get away. After so many searches, the rangers of the national park were convinced that she was not in the park. Her body was never found. There are no current suspects, leads, or evidence. It's strange that a young girl could vanish while on a popular trail in the middle of the day surrounded by people. Whether she orchestrated her own disappearance or was kidnapped will remain a mystery. The strange disappearance of Alfred Beilhartz. It was a warm summer day in 1938 when the Beilhartz family decided to go fishing at Estes Park, Colorado. They had been camping in the Rocky Mountain National Park over Independence Day weekend for their summer vacation. What they expected to be a lovely and fun family outing soon turned into a nightmare that they never woke up from. On July 3, 1938, at approximately 8 a.m., the youngest Beilhartz child, Alfred, mysteriously disappeared. The family was camping about a quarter-mile west of the Fall River Lodge with family friends. The campsite was situated near Horseshoe Falls, where the Roaring River and Fall River intersect. That morning, the Beilhartz family made plans to go fishing. They were hiking together on a trail that ran alongside the Roaring River. As the trail they were hiking on was narrow, the family formed a single line as they walked. Little Alfred Beilhartz was the youngest of 10 children in the family. Only 4 years old at the time, Alfred made up the rear of the line. His parents and 9 older siblings were all ahead of him, so no one noticed when he fell behind the group and vanished. After realizing he disappeared, his family desperately searched the area for him. Unsuccessful, they anxiously called in the park rangers for assistance. Ranger Mumu at the Fall River Ranger Station immediately contacted the Civilian Conservation Corps, a work relief program implemented by President Roosevelt's New Deal. Over 100 CCC members showed up to help in the search and rescue. The rangers assumed he had fallen and drowned in the creek, so they focused their search there. They dammed the creek by setting up sandbags, rocks, logs, and even a fence with barbed wire, but nobody turned up. They also dragged the river for almost 6 miles. As there was no way for his body to have been carried downstream past all the searches and obstructions, the rangers stopped searching the river. There was a potential sighting of him by fellow hikers in the national park. On Sunday, July 3rd, William J. Eels and his wife were hiking up the Old Fall River Road. While taking a break, they looked up at Mount Chaplin and saw a young boy sitting on a ledge along the mountainside. According to the couple, he made a loud noise before either abruptly leaving or being pulled back. This section of the mountain was 6 miles west and almost 3,000 feet higher in elevation from where Alfred had vanished from. The couple reported this to the rangers a day later, but nothing was found by the time investigators arrived. Alfred's parents were convinced that he had been abducted. They argued that he would never just walk off and leave his family, and they were very into the creek. The searchers moved their focus onto land and brought in bloodhounds, but to no avail. They picked up a few scents but quickly lost them at a fork in the path and at the water. After 10 days, the search was eventually called off. There were hoax ransoms and a claimed sighting of him with a man in Nebraska, but no concrete leads. But what do you make of these 3 mountain disappearances? Every family has secrets, but most families don't have fans all over the world who want to know all of them. The royal family has had its fair share of secrets over all their generations, and new details are coming to light all the time. The royal family's lives are open books for the world, and people can't seem to get enough of all of them. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting royal family secrets. Prince Philip is obsessed with aliens and UFOs. Prince Philip has been obsessed with aliens and UFOs for several decades. His interest began in 1955 when Lord Louis Mountbatten reported an experience one of his employees had with a spaceship at the Broadlands estate in Romsey, England. Fred Briggs, the employee in question, was in a daze when Lord Mountbatten saw him after the incident. He said he saw a flying saucer hovering just above the ground and a man with overalls and a helmet came out. Briggs claims he was then knocked off of his bicycle and that an unseen force pinned him to the ground. He was sure no one would believe him. After all, he himself had never believed UFO stories before, which made this experience especially shocking. Prince Philip keeps track of UFO sightings on a map in Buckingham Palace. There is also a rumor that he has asked to see top-secret Ministry of Defense reports on UFO encounters. He has spent years collecting books on extraterrestrials. He spent the summer of 2019 reading a book called The Halt Experience, which tells the story of the Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980. This event is one of the most famous UFO sightings in Britain to date. In December 1980, several U.S. Air Force personnel at RAF Woodbridge spotted lights in the forest. When they went to find out what it was, they saw a triangular-shaped spacecraft. They took radiation readings which proved that something unique had been there. Radar staff had also spotted something that passed through their radar scope traveling at thousands of miles per hour. They said this object headed to the forest, where the Air Force personnel had seen the spacecraft. However, the government claimed the lights must have been from the Orfordness Lighthouse nearby. West Midlands detective John Hanson, who co-wrote the book, says it makes sense that Prince Philip would be interested in UFOs because he is such a sensible person. In his opinion, any sensible person should have this same interest because it is something that has baffled all of mankind for a millennium. Who is Harry's father? Princess Diana admitted that she had an affair with Major James Hewitt that lasted from 1986 to 1991. This affair occurred at the same time as Prince Charles was cheating on Diana with Camilla Parker Bowles, his current wife. Diana and James met at a courtier's cocktail party. She asked him to give her horseback riding lessons, and their relationship quickly progressed from there. It was Diana who initiated the affair one day, telling him that he gave her strength and she hated not being with him. James often snuck into Kensington Palace since Diana and Charles had separate bedrooms. He soon became a regular guest whenever Charles left on trips. Even Diana's sons, William and Harry, grew very fond of James because he was there so often. Ken Wharf, Diana's former protection officer, wrote a book called Diana, Closely Guarded Secret. In the book, Ken called James a womanizer who gave Diana the attention and affection she so badly desired. He said that Diana would sometimes meet James at a cottage that belonged to James' mother, and Ken could hear them together. James says that the two would simply have dinner and relax together, just enjoying each other's presence. Their relationship slowed down in 1989 when James was sent to Germany, even though Diana attempted to pull strings so he would not have to go. They rekindled their romance in 1990 before he was deployed to serve in the Gulf War. Diana could tell James was serious about their relationship from the way he spoke in his letters. She began to pull away from him and they finally split up for good in 1991. It has been said that James Hewitt might be Prince Harry's father ever since their affair became public, though James has denied this accusation. He believed that people were only spreading rumors because it would sell papers. Ken has also said in his book that this accusation is nonsense because the timeline does not add up. Diana and James did not meet until 2 years after Harry was born. People often like to point out that Harry has red hair like James, but Ken is quick to remind people in his book that Harry's red hair comes from Diana's side of the family. Prince Albert and Queen Victoria were first cousins. Princess Charlotte, the only legitimate grandchild of King George III, passed away in January 1820. This left no other heir to the throne. King George's unmarried sons frantically tried to find wives and have children so that they could provide the king a new heir. In 1818, Prince Edward, the fourth son of King George, married Princess Victoria of Saxe-Victoria. Their future queen was the only child they had together before Edward passed away in 1820. Victoria met her cousin, Prince Albert, on her 17th birthday in 1836, and they immediately fell in love. She wrote in her diary about how attractive she found him, even mentioning their physical similarities, such as their hair color. Though their attraction was very evident, they did not meet again for 3 more years. In 1837, Victoria was crowned queen. She hated the idea of getting married, but this soon changed when Albert came to visit the English court in 1839. After 5 days, Victoria proposed to Albert and he accepted. Victoria's mother and Albert's father were sister and brother. Victoria and Albert were 3 months apart in age and were even delivered by the same midwife. Though they were first cousins, they got married in February 1840 in St. James's Palace in London. Their marriage had been greatly encouraged by their uncle Leopold, who had helped prepare Albert to be Victoria's husband. Victoria once wrote a letter to Leopold, thanking him for the great happiness he had given her through Albert. This type of marriage was not totally unusual for royal families. They did it to retain titles and to ensure other people would not be able to claim their family's power. Unfortunately, this intermarrying brought about significant health concerns for their family. Victoria carried the gene for hemophilia, a blood-clotting disease acquired from a gene from both of her parents. She passed this gene onto one of her sons and onto a few of her daughters. They then passed it on to some of their own children. Many of her descendants passed away very young because of problems related to this disease. Victoria and Albert had 9 children together. 42 grandchildren, though only 34 of them lived to become adults. Their descendants are found in royal families through Germany, Norway, Greece, Sweden, Russia, and Spain. For this reason, Victoria is often referred to as the grandmother of Europe. Victoria and Albert were married for 21 years. Albert passed away on December 14, 1861 at 42 years old. He passed away due to typhoid fever, though it is now thought to have been from stomach troubles. Victoria was never able to move on. She had relied on him for everything and did not handle him passing away very well. Albert's rooms in each of their houses were kept exactly as they had always been. She even made sure someone brought in hot water every morning and that the linen and towels were changed every day. She withdrew from the public and refused to go to social gatherings. It has even been said that she slept next to a picture of Albert every night after he passed. She wore black in mourning for the rest of her life, leading her to be called the Widow of Windsor. Queen Victoria passed away in 1901 and was laid to rest beside Prince Albert in the Royal Mausoleum Frogmore at Windsor Great Park. What do you make of these royal family secrets? The thought of there being alien life is an interesting concept. Although there's some that don't believe in alien life, others are certain that with the vast amount of planets littering our universe, there's a very high chance that alien life can be found on some of them. This has caused some interesting conversations in recent times, with both scientists and researchers making some interesting points to back up their claims. Recently, an Oxford University instructor has made some interesting and bold claims. Dr. Young-Hae Chi, a Korean lecturer from the Oxford Institute, has claimed that alien life may be on our planet right now, and even goes on to claim that they may be experimenting on human beings. Theorists over the years have put 4 different theories in regards to aliens, and one is that our world isn't ruled by humans, but rather aliens who have the final say on everything. Dr. Chi claims that alien abductions are very much real, and that they've been doing this for genetic manipulation purposes. He believes that these aliens are using humans to breed with, thus creating a superhybrid. This new creation would be able to survive harsh conditions and would be the best of both aliens and humans. Taking a dark turn, the doctor then said that aliens are doing this without people's consent. Interestingly, he claims there is a direct correlation between alien abductions and climate change, suggesting that these new hybrids are much more suited to this new climate. The doctor went on to say the following: one possibility is that they find our DNA valuable for preservation of the stag. Secondly, to create species which can survive in future climate conditions. Thirdly, some abductees report that these hybrids are of a very high intelligence. The doctor then goes on to claim that there are different species of aliens on this planet right now, saying that one species looks like an insect, and the other is more lizard-like, having snake eyes and scaly skin. Interestingly, people who have been abducted over the years have described similar-looking creatures. The late Dr. Stephen Hawking even came forward and said that alien intervention could happen. In fact, the late research scientists claim that alien contact would most likely occur within the next century, if it hasn't already, and further explains that if we encountered an alien civilization, the meeting would be similar to that of Christopher Columbus first encountering Native Americans. He further goes on to warn us about the potential disaster of trusting an alien species, and explains that not only should we remain vigilant, but that an advanced race would have other motives that may be unpredictable. This has given their technological development and superior intellect, claiming further that any intelligent alien species could not ever be fully trusted. This is an interesting prediction and may be the case over this next century, as developments in spaceframe technologies are being worked on and made, along with the fact that new reports of alien technologies keep surfacing. The Disclosure Project has already been responsible for the disclosure of a massive amount of government documents tied to alien investigations, and further findings have been made, including the recovery of a broken piece of alien spacecraft that was recovered by Linda Moulton Howell, which has caught the attention of both NASA and the Department of Defense. Each person's body is unique. Although they have a lot in common, each one is different. Interestingly, over the years people have noticed that our bodies can do certain things, or that some people have markings that many don't. There are many of us who hear about palm readings and immediately question it. After all, this is considered one of those trick games that con people. Some people have also said the same about the Ouija balls. These board games are said to summon loved ones and possibly even demons. However, many people think they're just games and can't do what some suggest. There are some that believe that our palms can predict our destiny, and this was something that was taken seriously and studied by the ancient Greeks and Egyptians. There is historical evidence that the palms and its imprints say a lot about a person and can even describe their personality. Think about the hand itself. How do we identify a person? One way would be through the imprints on their fingers. No two sets of these are alike. Fingerprints are the small ridges and patterns on every finger you have. These friction ridges are present on your fingertips, palms, toes, and soles. They are also known as dermal ridges. Fingerprints have long fascinated people. It's caused some to look deeper into this and even study hands. The fingerprint formation has been compared to our own ID. They are given to us when we begin life in the womb. Depending on where you read, some have claimed that only 1 to 3% of people have an X marked on their palms. It's rumored that Alexander the Great was fascinated by these markings and would even study the hands of his military officers. Some researchers have said that certain behaviors can be attributed to the markings on one's hands. Although it's important to note that this isn't backed by science. The markings of an X on someone's hand is said to be a sign of strength and greatness. It's also noted that those who have this markings are destined for greatness. Research that was allegedly conducted by Moscow researchers found that people with an X symbol were far more confident than others, and when put in a room full of people stood out more. Interestingly, it's noted that both Vladimir Putin and Abraham Lincoln both had this marking on their hands. This symbol has also been linked with people of higher intelligence. However, some have said this isn't based on facts, and the markings on our hands are just random. Interestingly, it's also been pointed out that around 0.5% of people have a semi-increase, which is described as being a single straight line that goes across someone's path. Oddly enough, many people who have this deep line include those of politicians. One of the great things about having cameras in space is that they pick up on things we wouldn't usually see. These events would normally go unseen, but as our technology has improved, it's allowed us to see these sightings from the comforts of our home. NASA scientists and researchers have done a great job at understanding the majority of these recordings. However, every so often something will happen that causes theories to run wild. Going back in February last year, NASA's satellite stereo HI-1 captured a strange event in space that lasted for several days. People were able to take screenshots of what was happening, with some describing it as a force field popping in space, while others said it looked like an energy ring. People who were watching then said that a massive discharge happened, which in turn caused a giant bubble to appear. Interestingly, not many websites posted about the discovery. This has made some suggest that the cause behind the anomaly could be that of a lens flare. NASA themselves have said that anomalies appearing in photographs is actually quite common, and although some of these sites look really impressive, people shouldn't look too much into them because they're most likely camera anomalies. Others, however, suggested this isn't the case, and what the cameras picked up on was a mysterious space anomaly. The ideas for what it was included an unidentified flying object, a new planet, or even an unknown space event. This isn't the only interesting thing that NASA cameras have captured recently. This discovery was made by the Solar Terrestrial Relations Observatory cameras, picked up on what some described as a UFO. Some even went as far as suggesting the anomaly was an Ezekiel whale. These come from the book of Ezekiel. Over the years, many have come forward and said that Ezekiel's vision could be proof of UFOs in the Bible, further saying that these mysterious crafts have been witnessed on our planet for thousands of years. They also point to various illustrations that have been made that also feature these unidentified flying objects. Some have appeared in ancient paintings, while others have been found in ancient caves. These are usually explained by researchers as being pareidolia, and that we are seeing something that isn't a UFO. However, some don't agree with this explanation and suggest there's something else at play. Many UFO researchers were excited by the images, as they said it was solid proof that something massive was lurking in our solar system. Some then said that NASA will most likely ignore these claims and try to brush them under the carpet. However, NASA didn't in fact respond. They said the following: some people have noticed an odd shape, sort of a cross inside a circle entering the field of view of the HI-2 telescope on stereo. This was around the 20th of February 2020. Eventually, there is a cone shape that appears next to it. You can see the feature in question in this movie moving from right to left, just below on the right side of the image. The answer lies in the exact opposite side of the image. At the same time as this strange-looking feature starts being visible, the very bright planet Venus enters the H2 field of view from the left. Notice that Venus and the feature stay in step almost exactly opposite of each other. This is not a coincidence. The strange-looking geometrical object is actually an internal reflection of the planet's Venus. This effect has been seen many times before. Although scientists have said that as of today we haven't encountered life outside of our planet, there's some that believe this isn't true, and that for years other life has visited our planet. Some have even come up with ways that we can see these beings. Daniel Nemes is a scientist and researcher who, as a young teenager, had a passion for science and astronomy. Due to this interest, this made him pursue the field of science. Today, Daniel is a scientist, researcher, and inventor who's located in Colombia. However, he's gained a large following over the years, and this is for claiming that he has the technology to contact and photograph multidimensional beings. There's many people that believe that under the right conditions you can actually see and photograph these beings. Daniel said that he got interested in this subject after reading about dark matter. When it comes to discussing the nature of the Milky Way galaxy and the formation of mass and energy within it, nothing seems more mysterious and unexplained than the very nature of dark matter. Scientists are not really sure about what it is, but according to studies and calculations made by the world's best physicists, dark matter makes up for over 80% of the mass of the Milky Way galaxy and can't for some reason be directly observed by any means available. Though this strange form of matter or energy can't be observed, by understanding the movement of stars, it was made obvious to researchers that there was a large amount of mass not accounted for within our galactic supercluster. Understanding what it is where it can't be detected and all of its strange properties could be the key to understanding big questions about the nature of our universe. Daniel was aware of technology that was able to capture different wavelengths, some of which included ultraviolet and infrared. However, he was able to capture these beings using his own methods. He has called this energy vision. This is achieved by using different types of lens and using natural sunlight. This in turn allows them to capture images of these unidentified beings, which have been described as being of unknown origin. Others have come forward and claim to have captured these beings as well, saying that it's hard to do and you need patience. Daniel has said, though, that at first people were not receptive of his images, saying they would discredit him and suggest the images were fake. One person said you can only see these entities under certain lights, and that's that all around us you just need the correct technology to pick up on them. As with most paranormal topics, though, scientists are not very open to the idea of interdimensional beings and have said that the most likely explanation for what people are seeing is that of pareidolia. This is when we see faces and objects in everyday things. One example is seeing faces in clouds. Some, though, have said that these images are genuine and that scientists and researchers should be looking into this technology. NASA themselves have said that it's likely there's life on other planets. The space agency have announced they're now making it their mission to find life. This has proven to be difficult so far, but bearing in mind how vast our universe is, we haven't even searched a fraction of it. Some, however, have said they think we've already found it, and these individuals point to old photographs that have been taken by the agency. NASA uploaded this photograph to their website and said the following. This image was taken by Front Hazard of Audience Camera. The front has come on board NASA's Mars rover Curiosity on Solar Day 2662 on the 1st of February 2020 at 11 a.m. However, it's the anomaly in the left-hand corner that's caught people's attention. You can see what appears to be a black sphere-shaped object hovering in the sky, causing some to suggest that this anomaly is an unidentified flying object. Others, however, have suggested that this object could just be a piece of space debris or a smudge on the camera. Theorists, however, point to other photographs which seem to show similar-looking objects. This has caused various individuals to look through archived images in the hopes of finding these strange crafts. As of right now, we don't have much information to go by. But images like these start interesting conversations about life possibly being on other planets. This isn't the only claim of there being alleged life on Mars. A professor from Ohio University has come forward and suggested that photographs taken on the red planets may show proof of living creatures. This professor is referring to insects and states that due to the vast amount of photographs available on NASA's websites, one is able to, with enough patience, discover insects hiding among the rocks on the red planet. This news broke when the professor held a talk in November 2019, and it didn't take long for the news to make various headlines across the world. Usually when these types of claims come out, it's from individuals that are set in their ways. But when a professor, scientist, or researcher makes these types of claims, it usually captures people's attention. During his talk, he showed a number of different photographs showing what was, according to him, proof of insects on the red planet. Interestingly, he suggested that some of these photos also showed insects that were fossilized. One of the photographs he presented as evidence is said to be that of a bee. He points out that the creature in question has shiny eyes, and that this is what convinced him that there are living insects on the red planet. Although these claims sound far-fetched, there are many people that believe what he's saying. In fact, over the last couple of years, various photographs have been presented, which do appear to show living creatures. The professor is highly respected and has been in this field for over 45 years. So he's somebody who's able to make out an insect in a photograph. This is one of the things that's made people excited about these claims. NASA, however, have said that what people experience seeing is pareidolia, and that there's no living creatures on Mars. So what do you guys make of these claims? And do you think there's other life in our solar system? Haunted schools have been depicted in many television shows and movies for as long as storytelling has been around. But did you know that there are many real schools that are believed to be haunted? With an astounding number of examples, historical accounts, and more, it's easy to see why so many think they are in fact haunted. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 of the most eerie and spooky schools. El Paso High School Ghost. We're starting off with one of the most haunted schools in the United States, El Paso High School. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, it should come as no surprise as to why a ghost would want to haunt students. Many people come and go from high school each and every year, and it's a place where students discover who they truly are. With a large number of people dealing with bullying, family issues, and problems with self-confidence, high school isn't always as glamorous as it seems. El Paso High School is not referred to as one of the most haunted schools in the United States for no reason. The events that took place there are something out of a horror movie and are almost unbelievable. In order to fully understand what happened at El Paso High School, you must first be able to put yourself in the shoes of a student and learn about its history. The school has always been indescribably beautiful, with marble flooring along the halls, wooden floors in the classrooms, and one of the first concrete stadiums in the United States. The school sits atop a mountainside that overlooks the city, which led to its nickname being the Lady on the Hill. El Paso High School was officially recognized as a historical landmark in 1980 and was known for its highly esteemed graduates, competitive athletics team, and stunning campus. So what went wrong? How did this seemingly normal high school take on so much paranormal activity? Well, before it was a school, the basement was used as an overflow morgue that would temporarily hold bodies from World War II until the families were informed of their loved ones passing. With this dark history known among students, some were curious enough to go exploring in and stumbled upon classrooms. The classrooms appeared to be in pristine condition, but were blocked off with no reason given as to why they were not being used. Students began to question what had really happened in those classrooms and if there was more to the story. Beyond those eerie details are a number of supernatural occurrences that took place within the school walls. Many had reported hearing the slamming of doors and sounds of students when the school was completely empty and there was no trace of people nearby. The one story that stands out as genuinely haunting is from a teacher that worked at El Paso High School. As he was leaving the building to go home after staying late at work, he came across a girl in a blue dress at the end of the hallway. He was about to tell her to leave since it was after school hours. When she turned around, the teacher watched as her sad face disappeared into thin air. After that, numerous others had mentioned seeing a ghost of the same girl, and it was eventually tied to a girl who had slit her wrists and jumped off a school balcony. The area where she jumped has been blocked off, but students still claim to see the ghost of her body standing at the balcony and jumping off. El Paso High School has another ghost story from a class picture taken in 1985 of the graduating class. At first glance, nothing seems unusual about the photo, but after further examination you can see a faded young girl in a white dress, mixed into the row of teachers. After investigating the unknown figure, no one knew who the girl was. While we may not ever find out, it's safe to say that El Paso has a haunted history that no one is sure what will happen in the future. Lambertville High School. Our next mysterious and haunted school is Lambertville High School in New Jersey. The school was first constructed in 1854, and the original structure had mostly burned in a fire in the early 1920s. There were many rumors spread about the fire, claiming the lives of 50 students and some teachers. However, it was rebuilt and remodeled and was still in use as a school. Another rumor about a player named Billy from the Buckeyes football team circulated after they came to play Lambertville High. After Billy was piled and jumped on by the Lambertville players, they discovered he had actually passed away. Some said they saw his broken neck and head turned completely around on his corpse. From that day on, Billy was believed to have haunted the halls of the school, even after it was closed and abandoned. That if you visit the school at night and say, "Billy, I challenge you to a football game," your neck would be snapped and you'll pass away instantly. Of course, this has never been recorded to have actually happened, but it still remains an ominous tale today. In 1992, another fire was set in the school by vandals, and after that, it was abandoned. Eventually, the school was demolished in 2012, and although the school no longer stands, ghost stories still remain. Pennsylvania State University. Our last haunted school is Pennsylvania State University, otherwise known as Penn State or PSU. The university was founded in 1855 as an agricultural college, but eventually introduced other programs such as engineering. When the engineering program took off, more degrees were introduced and enrollment figures were doubling each year. So what's so scary about Penn State? For starters, the hauntings began when a student lost their life in 1969 at the library. She was working on a paper and was brutally punctured by a knife from behind. A librarian was made aware of the slaughter when a mysterious man mentioned a woman on the floor not moving. She was found on the floor of row 51. The person who conflicted this brutal stabbing was never caught, and the case has remained open. Ever since, the rows have changed throughout the library, but many have heard screams, gasps, and seen blood stains. However, there doesn't seem to be an explanation for the sounds or the blood. Besides the library, Penn State is also said to be home to another ghost. Atherton Hall is one of the oldest buildings on campus, and students believe that Frances Atherton, the late wife of the school's former president, is haunting the building. Students have claimed to see doors open and close without a person there to do it, as well as seeing her ghost looking out of the window from the top floor. There have been many other supposed ghosts found on campus. In fact, students have also heard the footsteps of a house mother who patrolled the floors at night after curfew to make sure no one was coming in late. Current students who live in the building have said they hear footsteps randomly late at night. Unfortunately, the haunting doesn't stop there. Schwab Auditorium is another hotspot for paranormal activity. The theater is also believed to be home to the ghost of a former janitor. Unusual activity such as hearing heavy footsteps, doors creaking open, and finding objects mysteriously relocated is enough to convince many students of the ghost's existence. With so many haunting stories and experiences taking place at Penn State, a former student formed a paranormal research society in 2006. The purpose of the club was to investigate paranormal cases to try and make sense of them. The group became popular within the school and eventually caught the media's attention, and they had their own reality series on television. Eventually, the club was handed off to younger students who continued to study the unusual events that take place at the university and surrounding areas. At this point, nothing groundbreaking has been discovered, but with many eyes watching and learning about paranormal activity, they just might arrive at some answers one day. Have you seen a ghost or had similar experiences? Are there any haunted places where you're from? For those who believe in ghosts and have seen them for themselves, these places are unbelievably frightening. There are also many non-believers who visit and have a scary interaction with the supernatural forces. Although we can't exactly prove their existence yet, there's no telling what we'll discover in the future. We might just have to wait for ghosts to appear before our eyes in order to fully believe. But what do you make of these stories of these haunted schools? For years, the Egyptian pyramids have been a mystery. The giant structures have stood up to the test of time and have even caused divide within the archaeological community. One thing that researchers found strange is that the Egyptians littered their walls with details about how they lived, what pharaohs ruled, which times, battles, and various other things. One thing that remains solid on there was how they created the pyramids. A team of archaeologists from Egypt and France discovered an ancient papyrus diary, and this was written by an official named Mera. What makes this discovery so interesting is that it's the first time that a first-person description of the pyramids has come to light. This diary could hold the key to many mysteries of the pyramids. The diary details that Mera worked alongside Unkarth. This individual is important as he was Therakorthus' half-brother. This diary goes on to explain that Khufu's half-brother was behind the Great Pyramid's construction, making him one of the best architects this world has known. The diary then details how the pyramids came to be. It explains that limestones were taken from a site called Tura, which was over 10 miles away from Cairo. Once collected, it was then placed on boats and taken down the River Nile. The massive stone blocks were then placed at the construction site, where they were placed on tracks and pulled using roams. It's estimated that over 160,000 tons of limestone was moved from this location and taken to the construction site. Some archaeologists have spoken out about this, and for one specific reason. The reality of this discovery is that it's just a piece of paper, and in recent years archaeologists and Egyptologists have noticed an interesting pattern. And that's that there's been a lot of forgeries discovered around ancient complexes. One of the biggest discoveries that helped to launch the careers of many self-proclaimed experts in the study of Egypt was the discovery that the pyramids of Giza were constructed by the pharaoh Khufu, of which puts the pyramids at a certain date of construction and time. The problem with this discovery is that the only evidence of the name of the pharaoh referenced on the pyramid was an old carving in the Campbell's chamber, that many believe could have been the cartouche of Khufu and his royal signature. As it later turns out, the carving was an obvious forgery with the dating of the piece, the damage done to the piece, and even the incorrect spelling and carving of the cartouche being the smoking gun evidence, and proved that it was nothing more than Egyptologists looking to take on a false sense of fame and fortune with their published works. This led some to say that an incredibly large piece of history is being completely wrong. And given the fact that the majority of works in the modern day were built of these ancient findings, it appears that experts have gotten it completely backwards. Not only is there physical and scientific evidence of the pyramids being much older, possibly even older than human civilization itself, but it appears that the Egyptian government has politicized this issue so that no other people and countries can lay legitimate land claims in these territories, causing some to question why they would do this. This has led many Egyptologists to not believe true evidence of dating, references to the timeline of an actual reign of a pharaoh, and even the complete rejection of any ideas involving alternate explanations of construction, time frame, and even historical impacts. This is one of the issues that rises when forgeries are discovered in these types of locations. Not long ago, this happened with something the Egyptologists called the nonsense hieroglyphs, and it seems that a pattern is emerging, and this is that there's many forgeries that have come to light within the last few years. For decades, a group of Polish archaeologists have been working to excavate the Sakura necropolis. This necropolis was inside the ancient capital of Memphis, inside its field with ornate tombs. Obvious that this particular necropolis was reserved for royalty. Nearby, in a dig taking place in September of 2018, Egyptologists were working in an area between the Pyramid of Djoser. It was here they discovered something out of the ordinary. When tombs of royalty or other important people are uncovered, they are often filled with grave goods symbolizing their importance. Some are even labeled with hieroglyphics. Modern hieroglyphics have been around since roughly 32nd century BC, with the first 4 sentences appearing in the 28th century BC. The written language consists of over 1,000 distinct characters. With this ancient language unlocked, researchers can decipher all kinds of things about the tombs they decorated, including who they belong to. That was until the dig near the Pyramid of Djoser. Here, the team found roughly 500 simple burials. These burials were simple, and in no way it's neatly done as those of the royals. One could even call them clumsy. It's thought this could have been a burial site for the working or middle-class people. Although the coffins had much damage and were often found empty from looters, one coffin remained intact enough for the team to study. On the lid, where the name of the deceased would often go, were what is best to be referred to as an imitation hieroglyph. They didn't make one bit of sense. The researchers believed that possibly the painter was illiterate and simply tried to recreate glyphs they'd seen before. Furthermore, figures of Anubis, guardian of the underworld, were painted in blue instead of his usual blank. They described the coffin as beautifully clumsy. It's in our nature to question the unknown. And when we see these incredible feats, that leaves us in wonder. Finding the truth in historical discoveries is always going to be tough, especially when evidence has been stolen or tampered with, 2 things that happened a lot through Egyptian history. When you start to introduce things like fakes, it only becomes more difficult to unravel the truth. It was only recently that researchers discovered that many of the Dead Sea Scrolls actually turned out to be fakes. 5 pieces of the scrolls were sent to Germany's Federal Institute for Materials Research to be tested, and in late 2018 they announced the truth of the test results. None of the scrolls are genuine, and are merely modern recreations which managed to fool the museum collectors, founders, and even the most famous biblical professors, scholars, and researchers until now. So it seems that we still have a lot of work to do. So what do you make of this recent Egyptian discovery? And do you think this explains how the ancient pyramids were created? The recent monolith craze has taken over the internet. It seems that every other day a new photograph emerges showing these strange structures, leading people to give their ideas on what they think they are and where they're coming from. A man sent me an interesting photo that contains this anomaly. He said that going back a few months ago, he was watching the pyramid live cams when he noticed something strange in the sky. He claims that he's an avid watcher of live cams from across the world, and couldn't explain the strange objects that he saw hovering above the giant pyramids. He brushed it off at first, but said it did play on his mind. Fast forward a few months, and after hearing about all the recent monoliths, he says that it has a similar shape to all these structures that have been appearing across our planet. Before the whole monolith craze, he claims that it threw him off at first as it looked like a giant pillar was hovering above the pyramids. Every so often, unidentified flying objects will appear above the Great Pyramids at Giza, and every time it gets people talking. This is mainly because the pyramids themselves are shrouded in mystery, with many researchers putting forward alternative ideas for how they were built. It is strange, though, that this object appeared above the pyramids, and then several months later objects that look similar to this start appearing all across the planet. It's likely a coincidence that the two structures look similar, but only recently another man in the United States claimed to have captured a UFO that looks like a monolith in the sky, again saying that the structure looks very similar to the ones currently being found. Some UFO researchers have said that these cylinder structures are one of the most commonly shaped UFOs, saying that for years everyday people have been reporting cylinder-shaped UFOs, and that these sightings normally follow a similar theme. The cylinder crafts being able to hover in the sky motionless without making a sound, and being able to make a quick exit if they're approached by things like phytogeans. Regardless, it's an interesting photograph of an unidentified flying object above some of the most impressive ancient creations on our planet. The majority of people now believe these are nothing more than the work of pranksters, but as some have pointed out, there's still some inconsistencies with this idea. One of the main ones being, how is an artist or a group of artists pulling this off? These structures have appeared in various different countries and within a few hours of each other, and this has caused some to rule out the idea that it's a single person doing this. After all, how could they ship and install these things within a matter of hours of each other? The next idea is that a group of artists situated in different countries are working together to install them, and although this idea sounds like the most likely one, a group hasn't come forward to claim that it's them that's building them. Some artists and companies have created similar-looking designs, and even said they will build you your own one for the large sum of $45,000. But because these artists are based in one country, it's said they're not behind all of the monoliths being installed, with others saying that they're just trying to make quick money from the graves. The other idea is one that I covered in a previous video, and that's that recently these monoliths have caused a lot of theories and speculation to be thrown around, and news stations have noticed this and tried to get in on the graves. The idea here is that certain news stations have paid people to create these structures so they can be the first ones to cover them, meaning that they'll get the maximum views because they'll know where the structure will be installed as they're the ones paying for it. This means they get the first scoop and can claim to be the first ones to cover it. One person who worked for a news station was quoted as saying the following: "The Yutong monolith made people put forward all kinds of different theories to try and explain it. But what news stations saw was that these structures were creating a lot of engagement online. All of this talk gave news companies an idea. Why don't we start creating our own monoliths and placing them in random locations? And because we know where we'd be placing them, we'd be the first ones to cover them, giving us the most impressions and causing viewerships to increase." This is exactly what happened here. Some media abroad aren't doing so well on numbers, so it was a great idea for them to create their own structures and place them in locations close to their headquarters. It would cost between $200 and $1,000 to create one of these monoliths, but the payback in clicks would easily cover the costs, and also they could claim that they were the first ones that covered it. It's a win-win for them. End quote. Skeptics still say these structures are fake. This theory is the one that skeptics believe in, saying that these structures are nothing more than pranks being played on the general public. So where does this idea come from? Skeptics point to the fact it's likely that the Yutong leaf would have been discovered by now, and that the likelihood is that it was installed within the last few years. They say that the pranksters wouldn't have wanted to place this structure in plain sight, as this would have made it too obvious it was fake. So they found a location that not many people visited and decided to place it in the ground. Yutong monolith was surrounded by many crevices, and although the structure itself is over 15 feet tall, it would have been quite hard to spot if you were just walking past and not taking note of your surroundings. There's another idea that these structures are similar to the Takata 3301 organization, and this is because one recently turned up in Australia that had cryptid coordinates on it. Those looking to find the coordinates and see where they lead to will struggle though, as once again, same as many before it, this one leaf has disappeared, prompting different theories to be put forward for why they keep vanishing. So what do you make of this monolith that appeared above the pyramids at Giza? Do you think it's linked to the events playing out around the world? Or is it just a coincidence? Time travel is an interesting topic. Although the idea of time travel is hypothetical, there's many stories that have been shared in recent years claiming that we've achieved time travel. One of these stories comes from an interesting device that's said to be held deep within the Vatican. The Vatican archives have long said to hide some of the world's biggest secrets, with some saying they hide the truth behind extraterrestrial encounters and sightings, while others say they hide the truth about Jesus. One story that caught the attention of many was when a Catholic priest admitted that the Vatican had in its possession a time travel device. And this device allowed anyone to go back to a specific time in the past and view those events. In the 1960s, a Roman Catholic monk named Favonetti met another monk named Favenbrunn, and this was on a ferry ride to Venice. During the ferry ride, they discussed their own biblical interpretations. But Father Onetti said something that surprised Father Brunn. He said that he didn't see the need for theories and interpretations when they had the ability to see the truth for themselves. Father Onetti claimed there was a machine that could show them what really happened during the Bible days. Father Onetti told Father Brunn about a time-viewing machine called a chronovisor, which looked similar to a television that allowed people to see and hear things that happened in the past. He said it finds noises in sites that were still floating around in space. Father Onetti even claimed that while using this mysterious device, he'd watched the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Years before this, while working with Father Gamuli on filtering the harmonics for Gregorian chants, they somehow heard the voice of Father Gamuli's father speaking through the wire recorder, even though he'd already passed away. After this, Father Onetti couldn't stop wondering what happened to noises and sights from the past. He put together a secret team of scientists to help him figure this out. The only two scientists ever named were Juan Herman Braun and Enrico Fermi. This secret team built the Chronovisa in the 1950s. It allowed them to see and hear any time and place that ever existed. They not only claimed to have watched Jesus Christ, but also Napoleon, along with the plays by famous Roman authors. The team agreed to dismount the device after realizing how powerful it could be in the wrong hands. No moment could ever be completely private if they could see and hear any moment in time. They also believed that if the wrong person got hold of the machine, this person could become the worst dictator to ever exist. Father Onetti was often asked for proof of the machine. He transcribed the play thesis and offered it as proof only to certain people. He also had a picture of Christ that he had taken a photograph of through the Chronovisa. The picture shows Christ looking up while he was on the cross. However, both pieces of evidence were eventually criticized. Experts believe that the transcription of the play was too short to be a full play, as most would have been at least 10 times longer than what Fibonacci transcribed. He also included many Latin words that weren't used until around 200 years after the play. The play also seemed to be written by someone who didn't know Latin very well, even though it was the playwriter's native language, leading many to believe that Favonetti made it all up. People also noticed that the picture of Christ was the same as the picture on postcards sold at the Sanctuary of Merciful Love in Italy. The final piece of evidence that disproved Favonetti's story was a letter from an anonymous relative. This relative claimed that while on his deathbed, Favonetti admitted that he'd faked his previous pieces of evidence. He said he made up his own transcription of the play and that the photograph of Christ really was a copy from the postcard sold. However, he still insisted that the Chronovisa was real and that he really saw the events he previously claimed to have seen. Father Onetti never told anyone how the Chronovisor was made or how it worked, so there was never any tangible evidence. Although most people always believed he was lying, Father Brunn believed him. He believed that since the photos of Christ sold in the church in Sanctuary of Merciful Love were based on the descriptions of a vision and none had of Christ, both photos could have been acro photos. He also said that if Father Onetti really made this confession before dying, he may have done so because he is threatened by the Vatican. Even though Father Onetti claims the team dismantled the Chronovisa, some people believe it's still hidden away somewhere deep in the Vatican and will likely always remain a secret. One person said the following about the story: "The reason we will never find out the truth about this is because it would go against the very thing they're pushing. Just imagine if you could travel back 100,000 years in the past. You've already dismantled their idea that the world is only a few thousand years old. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to the idea that religion is built on fear and misinformation. For example, going back when the sky would rumble or the ground would shake, that was explained to the gods being angry. But now we know that these things happen because of thunder and lightning and tectonic plate movements. As humans have aged, we've increased our knowledge, allowing us to explain certain things with ease. For me, how people still look at a book that was written thousands of years ago as fact is beyond belief. How billions of people to this day still believe religion is tough to understand. Studies have shown that more people are moving forward with their belief system instead of relying on superstition. But it's still an interesting argument that carries on in the modern day. End quote. Others have followed on from these ideas and have said the Bible was most likely a case of misinformation, and that over the years more information got added to make the story more interesting. There's some who believe the real artifacts from the past are hidden deep within the Vatican archives, and that only a few selected individuals will ever be allowed to see these. Although small sections are being opened, the large majority of the archives remain a secret. So what do you guys make of the chronovisor? And what's your opinion on religion? These photographs had been making the rounds online, with people saying that a UFO crashed into the woods. These two men stumbled across this odd-looking object, but after walking around it, they soon realized it was a UFO. One of the first things that people pointed out was that the photographs seemed too good to be true. However, as it turns out, they are genuine. A report was sent to MUFON, which stands for the Mutual UFO Network, saying that a crashed UFO was found deep within the forest. The craft crashed in Australia close to Victoria. According to the witnesses, when they discovered the UFO, they decided to take a few photographs, but after around 20 minutes decided to go home. After getting home, they wanted to go back and video the craft. However, when they got there, the UFO was gone, and instead the whole area was covered in police tape. The photos remained a mystery for several weeks, until the truth finally came out. The truth is that the object is real and that various people did stumble across it, but it was a prop for a TV show called Hunters. Although this one turned out to be for a television show, there's various other stories of crashed UFOs that remain unexplained. Going back on April 17, 1897, inhabitants of a rural American town saw a single alien spacecraft lose control over the skies of Texas. A young boy saw an airship treading smokers that headed north towards the town of Aurora, slowing and speeding as it tried to regain control of its trajectory. It sailed over the public square, reaching the northern part of the town where it clipped the edge of a windmill at speed, then veering into the path of the town's water tower, whereupon contact blew into a number of large pieces. This woke the town's residents. On locating the ship's sole occupant, although the pilot was dead and disfigured from the crash, they soon realized that it was not an inhabitant of this world. Furthermore, strange markings in the manner of hieroglyphic characters were seen on the internal control panel. Terrified of the unknown, the townspeople quickly buried the body in the local cemetery, and removing the wreckage in the hopes that the incident would disappear from the town's history. But that would not be the end of this. Some decades later, an investigative reporter wanted to find out the facts behind this extraterrestrial cover-up. The investigator began with trying to locate the remains of the spacecraft itself. There was more added to this mystery, as the nearby site of the old windmill was a deep well. A sweep of the well would reveal metals in the water itself, some elements such as aluminium and water, but others that were unidentifiable in this planet's periodic table. Could this water well be where the spacecraft's parts had been dumped back in 1897? The presence of the metal surprised the well's owner. However, he disclosed that having started using the well, he began to feel pains in his joints and was soon diagnosed with early-onset arthritis that could be associated with the contaminated water. With the location of the spacecraft possibly found, the investigator moved to locate the extraterrestrial pilot. He discovered a grave marker and headstone that seemed to show a spacecraft of some sort, as well as faint readings from his metal detector again. After putting the pieces together, the investigator returned to the town, looking to ask for permission from the Cemetery Association to perform an exhumation and to conduct a more major operation of retrieving the spacecraft pieces from the well. Not only did the Cemetery Association refuse his request, but upon returning to the site to take photos, not only had the grave marker mysteriously disappeared, but the metal readings now showed nothing. As of today, the event remains a mystery. Something strange was reported a while back from the Santa Fe National Forest. Officials reported that mysterious wood structures were being found by hikers. What's strange is that not only are they tall, but they appeared seemingly overnight. Most of them are between 6 and 20 feet in height, and after taking some of them down, officials said they were built using over 1,000 pieces of wood. One spokesperson said the wood structures are appearing at an alarming rate and that their frequency has increased over time. The structures had park officials and even police officers baffled as to who was creating them, and not only that, but how these individuals managed to create them at such a fast pace. One of the concerns was that these structures posed a huge fire hazard. This is because they've been compared to structures that resemble those that are used to build wood fires in the forest. However, these ones are much taller. At this moment in time, park officials have no idea who's behind the building of these wood structures, and they can't figure out a motive behind the construction of them. Some have suggested that it's just the work of all teenagers. However, to build them at the rates they're being built, you would need an extremely large group of people. It's now been announced by the Forest Service that anyone caught building these wood structures will be fined $5,000. The structures are being built on federal land and they will treat it as trespassing. The forest officials have said they're becoming more common than ever. Interestingly, I received these emails from a subscriber and they said the following. I've emailed you photos I took today of eerily identical wood structures. These were taken in the woods near me. I have passed them numerous times without a second thought, until I saw the video you covered on the topic. I dismissed them as kids or campers, maybe even transients until now. Upon close examination, there were several things that stood out and deserve better, more detailed research and observation. Besides a few of their limbs, 99% of them showed no sign of being cut of any type of saw or axe. In fact, they all bore the signs of just being broken or fallen, possibly snapped off, requiring great strength if that was the case. Some of these branches were over 6 inches in diameter. Closer examination revealed that one of the structures, and a large portion of the others, were trimmed, having no bark whatsoever. The surrounding wood showed no evidence of any bark debris or deforestation at all. In fact, there was an excess of limbs and fully healthy trees surrounding these structures. Incredibly, upon entering one of the interiors of these mysterious things, I reached for a small branch, close to 2 feet long and paled into the soil. I pulled it out to take a closer look, and what happened next puzzled me. The part of the branch that was stabbed into the soil was almost completely covered in a layer of frost. We have not had enough cold weather to form to support this discovery, leaving me even more confused. If it wasn't for the initial interest in these structures presented, I would not mention the fact that the positioning of them is close to that of the astronomical phenomenon, strikingly similar to the pyramids in Egypt. There are many other things I observed, but they lack scientific proof or I'd mention them. The eyewitnesses also sent over these videos. Or throughout history, there appears to be a number of strange and unexplainable phenomena centered around religious gatherings and events. Many have found these events to be impossible to explain in the modern day. Additionally, many of these strange and mysterious religious events seem to point to the idea that perhaps our world is far stranger than we ever realized. One of the most common questions when it comes to religion is, what does God look like? It's a question that's been asked by many people over the years. The researchers at the University of North Carolina have managed to create what they describe as a portrait of God. The bold claim was made after the teens studied people's perception of God, and they said that this was the result. Many voiced their opinions, however, when the image was revealed, with some saying that it looks nothing like God, while others said that you can't put an image on God as he is everything. It appears that the painting showed God to be a young Caucasian man, something that many said was completely off. The reason they got to this image was because various religious people took part in a test. They were shown many images and had to select the one they thought resembled God the most. All of the samples that were selected were then put into a program that created a composite image. Joshua Conrad Jackson, who led the study at the University of North Carolina, said that the image also gave them an insight into how politics played into their views of God. Interestingly, he said that people who were conservative would go for a strong-looking Caucasian face, while liberals viewed God as looking more feminine and being on the younger side. Dr. Jackson said the following about the study: these biases might have stemmed from the type of societies that liberals and conservatives want. Past research shows that conservatives are more motivated than liberals to live in a well-ordered society, one that would be regulated by a powerful God. On the other hand, liberals are more motivated to live in a more tolerant society, which would be better regulated by a loving God. Some have pointed out, though, that this study is flawed, and that this is just based on a few people's ideas of what God looks like. In reality, many people have different opinions on what God looks like. Some imagine God as looking like Michelangelo's painting, Adam's creation, being an old man with a large white beard. However, as some have pointed out though, there's no proof as to what God looks like. Even in the Bible, there's no indication to God's appearance. Then there's others that have said that God doesn't exist, and our creation was merely due to a number of random events occurring. Some researchers are of the opinion that these issues are far too complex for us to figure out, saying that we have a narrow-minded view of things, and until we start opening our minds to other possibilities, we won't ever understand our true calling. For years, people have been witnessing mysterious anomalies in our sky. Most of them turn out to be natural phenomena, but some aren't so easy to explain and have created some interesting conversations. For example, something that's been witnessed by many worldwide is that of ball lightning. Ball lightning is the strange occurrence of when the conditions appear to be just right, and the static discharge of normal thunderstorm creates what appears to be floating balls of pure lightning and energy. Not only do these strange, unexplained instances of ball lightning create an unexplainable perfect spherical shape, but they also appear to move erratically through the sky and have often been mistaken as alien encounters. Glowing orbs is another phenomena that's been witnessed over the globe. These glowing orbs come in a variety of different colors, ranging from blue, red, orange, yellow, pink, silver, green, and black, and most people who've seen them have said they appear to pulsate. It's not known what they are, but some have linked them to UFOs. It's important to remember that a UFO is an unidentified flying object, and does not mean the object in question is alien in nature. It's only been in recent years that people have connected the two. It seems though the US Navy may be taking some inspiration from these objects, as they've recently come forward and announced that they'll be trying to create a phantom image of aircrafts. This is so that enemies and things like heat-seeking missiles will be put off. The US Navy has patented technology to create these images, and it's thought they'll be created using infrared technology. Researchers have said this could change everything. The US may be able to, in the near future, create their own phantom images. One of the issues that the military has faced is being able to protect military aircrafts from enemy missiles. Various ideas have been put forward in the past, and although some have helped, none have been able to stop these attacks. The system has been described as the following. There can be multiple laser systems mounted on the back of an air vehicle, with each laser generating a ghost image, so that there would appear to be multiple air vehicles present. Interestingly, this has caused some to suggest that the US has already been using this technology, and this could be behind some UFO sightings that have been reported in recent years. It's also been announced that the US Army is going forward with plans to create an extremely powerful laser weapon. The indirect fire protection capability high energy is said to be a 300 upwards kilowatt weapon. It's interesting to note that at this moment in time, the United States Navy currently uses this technology. However, the laser weapons they use is nowhere near as powerful as the one that's in development. In fact, it's reported that this new laser weapon will be over 10 times more powerful than the one that's used by the United States Navy. They've reported that these laser weapons will mainly be used to tackle things like incoming missiles. It's very clear then that the United States military is very interested in this technology. Officials have said they want this tech to be used by all three of the main services. One of the main reasons for wanting this technology is because of how efficient it is. The lasers are incredibly accurate, and you don't need to keep reloading. Scientists have said they've created the world's first human-monkey hybrid, saying that it was created in a laboratory in China. The reason for creating the hybrid was so that researchers could use its organs to save people's life. The idea is that these will be given to people that need life-saving transplants. The scientists and researchers have said they plan to carry on their research by using primates. As you can imagine, when this news was announced, there was quite the reaction. There's those that believe we shouldn't play God, and that we should leave things how they are, while others argue that it's the next step in our evolution. Fervor saying that because we are the superior species, we should be carrying out these tests. The team that created the hybrid said they'd injected human stem cells into a monkey embryo. However, the team stopped before the embryo was old enough to be born. The researchers were confident in their work. and said that human-monkey hybrid could have been born. Angel Rea of the Barcelona Regenerative Medicine Center said the following: what happens if the stem cells escape and form human neurons in the brain of the animal? Would it have consciousness? And what happens if these stem cells turn into sperm cells? However, other researchers said if this was the case, the cells would simply self-destruct. Estrella Loans of Murcia Catholic University in Spain said the following: the results are very promising if we combine the human pig, human rat, and human monkey research. It's many hundreds of thousands of euros. Other researchers have come forward and said it's a step in the right direction and the further tests should be carried out. Humanity has been in a constant state of evolution. We're incredibly intelligent, and this is backed up by various inventions and scientific discoveries. These discoveries can range from advanced research into different forms of medicine, inventions of new and complex machines, and even the discovery of already occurring phenomena that was otherwise unknown. One of the biggest questions surrounding DNA is what causes it to work the exact way it does. For those that are not aware, every single cell in your body contains the same DNA code inside of its nucleus, and the nucleus itself works to act like the brain of the cell and carries out the specific grossum functions needed to perform a specific job that's communicated by the strands of DNA inside it. Genetic modification is a controversial topic. There are many arguments for and against it. However, one thing that can be agreed on is that it has helped us in understanding things about our body. Recently, it was announced that genetically modified T cells had been observed destroying cancerous cells. The cells in question came from mice. The experiment showed researchers that these cells actually hunted for the tumor cells. Once found, it started the process of breaking them down. Scientists have now come forward and said this is promising for humans. Although these types of experiments are frowned upon by some, scientists say it could help save many lives in the future. The researchers and scientists involved said they've seen a major resurgence in interest in reprogramming T cells to take down cancerous cells. Many have been excited by this news, as it could mean that trials could start on humans. So what do you make of these types of experiments? And do you think we should carry on? Space is one place that humans will never fully explore. Scientists have said it's likely that we'll travel within our solar system, but anything beyond that poses much more complex problems. Some scientists and researchers have said the human brain can't comprehend the size of the universe and everything that's contained within it, and that there's just some things that we as humans will never fully understand. It's only been in the last few decades that we've made big strides in terms of space exploration. We are currently living in an exciting time. Space agencies are creating more sophisticated rockets. They are gearing up to send humans to the Red Planet. They are discovering more galaxies and planets than ever. And we've even detected signs of water on some of these solar bodies. However, due to the vast amounts of photographs that have been taken from spacecraft, sometimes some amateur researchers have spent countless hours looking through these in the hopes of finding something strange. One of these individuals is that of Scott Waring, a vocal UFO researcher who constantly looks through old NASA images in the hopes of finding something that looks out of place. And that's exactly what happened when he discovered an anomaly in an old Apollo 15 image. He said the following about the discovery: when looking over Apollo 15 images, I came across a photo that has a mothership in it. It's not a cloud. Clouds do not exist on the moon. So I enlarged the photo and saw it wasn't just a ship. It looked very like the Starship Voyager from Star Trek. End quote. He goes on to claim that the ship in question is over 10.6 kilometers or 6.5 miles in diameter. Other amateur researchers have come forward in recent years and claim to have found similar-looking objects in old photographs, and they say that this proves that there's more going on than what we're being told about, and in some cases the National Aeronautics and Space Administration is even editing out these images in the hopes that we won't see them. Amateur researchers say they do this because they think if the majority of the population find out about these things, they would just panic. NASA have come forward in recent years and have said that these claims cannot be backed up, and that they've never airbrushed or tried to hide anomalies in their photographs. Amateur researchers have said, though, that if you spend long enough, you can't find them yourself. However, as some have said, if this was a genuine craft, NASA would have just deleted the images, and to this day they can still be found on various websites. NASA have said, though, that it's their job to find these kinds of discoveries and help push us forward, and in all the years of searching they've never found anything of interest or that can't be explained, and go on to say that every single UFO photo can be explained as space dust. There's some who have said that we'll never understand the mysteries of the universe. Why are we here? It's a question many have asked, but no one knows the answer to. Life itself is a mystery. Two leading scientists have come forward and said that the human brain is a biological computer and that the consciousness of a human being is a program that runs by the brain's computer. It's believed that within the human brain there resides around 86 billion brain cells. The soul is something that's made many people put forward different theories. There's always been debate about the soul of a human and whether or not it goes on after life. There are those that believe your soul is what's actually keeping you alive, while others suggest that the soul is nothing. However, recently, researchers think they've found a new truth about the soul. They've put forward the theory that the soul doesn't die, it goes back into the universe. Dr. Stuart Hamroff, who is a physicist, and Sarah Roger Penrose, a mathematical physicist at Oxford University, have been working on the quantum theory of consciousness. Both of them suggest that the soul of a person is in the microtubules of the brain cells. Their theory states that human beings' soul is contained within the cells of the brain in structures that are inside them called microtubules. It sounds confusing, but the doctors think the human brain is just a biological computer. The consciousness we experience is run by the computer inside the brain. This means it will continue to exist after the human is gone. Both of them suggest that what humans think of consciousness is the result of the effect of the quantum gravity that is situated in the microtubules. The doctors said that when the heart of a person stops beating, the blood then starts flowing around the body. In turn, the microtubules inside the brain begin to lose the quantum state. However, the quantum information that's in these microtubules does not get destroyed. Instead, it gets distributed into the universe. This could mean that after death, our memories will enter the universe and carry on. Scientists have stated that humans may never be able to understand the universe. No one truly knows what happens when we pass. Many theories have been put forward, but we will only know the truth when we experience it. Humans have a natural fear of this, and this may be due to the fact that we associate it with pain. But if this theory is correct, it could mean that life on Earth is just the beginning. So how do the 100 trillion neural connections in our brains work together to create the feeling of being alive? Many great thinkers consider consciousness to be the biggest mystery not just of the human body, but the biggest ever. Any single brain, including yours, is made up of atoms that were forged in the hearts of countless far-flung stars billions of years ago. These particles drifted for eons and light years until gravity and chance brought them together. These atoms now form your brain that can not only ponder the very stars that gave it birth, but can also think about its own ability to think and wonder about its own ability to wonder. With the arrival of humans, it's been said the universe has suddenly become conscious of itself. This truly is the greatest mystery of all. So what do you make of this Apollo 15 photograph? Do you think it shows something there, or was it just a case of pareidolia? Or so, what do you make of consciousness? And what do you think happens to us after we pass on? All across the world, regardless of the difference in culture or geography, there appears to be tales of ancient dragons having once run the land in nearly every nation. This could, frail or be, evidence of the large serpent-like creatures having once existed all across the world, only to be driven to extinction by native populations. One recent photograph that's been making the rounds on cryptic pages is this one. Not much information can be found about the image. It's said that a man discovered this strange skull deep inside a cave in Romania. He said that littered all around the skull was what appeared to be large bones. But wanting to get out of there, he quickly grabbed the skull and left. After posting photographs of the skull on social media, many people were skeptical about the discovery. One of the interesting things about this discovery is that it does look genuine. With one person saying the following: every year we're discovering new species of animals that went extinct millions of years ago. There's certainly no shortage of dragon stories. And what's odd is that these were shared by people who lived in different countries and wouldn't have had contact. The Chinese dragon and the European dragon are perhaps some of the more well-known ones. So who's to say that these legends and tales aren't based on facts? End quote. Scientists, though, have said that as of today we have found no proof of dragons existing, and that the most likely answer is that people of the past were confusing other animals for dragons, for example, going back many years ago. It was suggested that you could occasionally find the tip of a dragon's tongue on the beach. This caused people to start going on beaches for the sole purpose of trying to find a dragon's tongue tip. It turned out, though, that what people were picking up were actually ancient megalodon teeth, a huge ancient shark that would have been the apex predator of the oceans during its time. As is estimated, this giant grew between 50 and 65 feet and had a bite force stronger than Tyrannosaurus Rex. Others who saw this image went down a different route and suggested that the skull is in fact real. But people are misidentifying what they're seeing. This skull likely belongs to that of a mosasaur, a large marine reptile that used to swim in our oceans millions of years ago. Their remains are commonly found in countries such as that of Morocco that have rich deposits of these types of fossils. What most likely happened here is that this is partly a real skull, and then someone had restored the rest of it to bring it back to life. It's interesting to see these restorations, and although this one might not be 100% anatomically correct, you can see how someone hundreds or thousands of years ago could confuse this for a dragon. Regardless, there's no shortage of dragon stories that have been shared in recent years. One of the strangest mysteries found across England is that of the legends surrounding the existence of a number of water dragons, believed to have been located around Sussex, referred to only as the Nuggers. The Nuggers were rumored to have lived in small ponds and lakes known as Nugger holes, and were supposedly responsible for the destruction of smaller villages, the disappearance of individuals devouring and tearing apart livestock, and infesting areas across England. This led to a number of local kings devising ways to have the dragons slain and completely eradicated in population, by using knights as hunters to hunt down and slay the creatures in different reported villages in nearby bodies of water. A number of legends have wrongfully supposed Nakas. Different variations in how the dragons were slain or outwitted had become popular folklore across smaller villages in England, leaving credits to the legends regardless of where they derived from. This has left many wondering if it was truly a larger species of megafauna capable of being portrayed as a dragon that lived in and around England infesting certain villages. Many researchers point to large-day lizards such as that of the Komodo dragon, of whom have ancestral megafauna cousins that commonly fit the description of the Nagas and would have had their natural habitats in ponds and other bodies of water. These species would also have a very small population given that their ancestral cousin, the Komodo dragon, is capable of generating offspring from just a single member of the species. However, as many have pointed out, England is not known to have any creatures that would match the Nagas. Others then have suggested that the story is a hoax. But one of the issues with this statement is that we have a tombstone as proof that something happened. Following mysteries surrounding the legends of the Nuggers and other dragon-like stories across England, the rumors surrounding the Slayer slab continues to be one of the center of stories of folklore surrounding that of a knight slain the last Nugger found in England. According to the story, the King of Sussex believed that the Nuggers living nearby their collection of villagers was becoming far too powerful for any man to defeat. This led him going to a wide variety of knights in the hopes that a small army could be formed. But no man was willing to fight for the king to slay such a beast. It was not until the King of Sussex offered his daughter's hand in marriage that a single knight came to the King of hopes of defeating the dragon and wedding the Princess of Sussex, of which normally would have been an impossible ceremony to perform as knights were prevented from being romantically connected with royal figures. The knight would go on to slay the dragon when finding it residing in a small pond referred to as Nuckaholmes. This was located near Leominster, earning the title of the Slayer after accomplishing such a feat after the beast was defeated. The knight returned to marry the daughter and later settled down in Leominster for the rest of his natural life. The Slayer would later pass away in the town and would lead to the rumors of the Slayer Slam, an unmarked gravestone located at a church in Leominster, that has no name or markings on the tombstone except for that of a cross overlaying a herringbone pattern that led many people to believe it's the grave of the Slayer that defeated the last dragon of England. So what do you make of these interesting stories? Going back a few years ago, the Volunteer Fire Protection District in Arkansas received a strange call. Someone told them there was a large hole in the ground that was spitting out flames. Worried that it could have been from an asteroid and could potentially harm someone, the fire chief, Mr. Tucker, made his way to the property. Once he arrived, he could see there was a large hole in the ground and, as described, it was spitting out flames. When it comes to these types of discoveries, officials said it could have only been a few things. but said that is important to conduct further investigations. Tucker said the following: "When I got there was flames 8 or 9 feet high shooting out of a hole around 2 feet in diameter. It burned that way for around 30 to 45 minutes before it went out." End quote. While observing the hole, Tucker noticed that it had a sharp turn in it. He revealed that he'd taken the temperature inside the hole and it was around 780 degrees, noting that whatever had caused this hole was still doing damage to the ground. While here, he observed the hole spitting out flames, and when the residents asked him what could have caused the hole to do this, he said he wasn't sure, and went on to say that he'd never seen anything like this before. One of the first things people pointed to was a meteorite. And this is because small meteorites have been recorded as causing a lot of damage when they come into contact with things on our planet. In fact, one well-known recorded incident is when a small meteorite hit the roof of a house in San Carlos, Uruguay. Once it made contact with the house, it went through the roof, bounced off the couch, which caused it to go into another room and destroy a bed and a TV. This meteorite was only a few inches across, but just goes to show how devastating these. NASA said the following on their website: "The Earth's atmosphere protects us from the multitude of small debris. These are the size of grains of sandal pebbles and thousands of which pelt our planet every day. The meteors in our night sky are visible evidence of this small debris burning up high in the atmosphere. In fact, up to a diameter of 10 to 33 meters, most stony meteoroids are destroyed in the atmosphere in thermal explosions. However, around 500 meteorites reach the surface every year." End quote. They went on to say that a meteorite as small as a few meters across could potentially wipe out a whole town. Interestingly though, Tucker went on to say that he didn't think it was a meteorite that caused this damage, going on to say that the site doesn't match that of a typical meteorite impact, saying that there's no signs of dirt having been scuffed up or splashed around the hole's edges. The next theory that was put forward was that the hole could have been created by a lightning storm, and that the hit caused the ground to be lit on fire. This wouldn't be the first time that a lightning strike caused something to be lit on fire. Lightning strikes are known for causing a variety of different objects to catch fire, from trees and grassy areas to things like buildings. Again though, when the residents reported that the hole was created, there was no reports of lightning storms in the area, so this idea is being ruled out. The last idea that was put forward by those who found the hole was that it could have been a groundhog, although they couldn't provide an answer for how a groundhog would cause this hole to start spitting out flames. Tucker then suggested that the hole could have been created from a gas company that was working in the area. While there was no signs of the flames and fire being caused by a gas explosion, the chief said that the gas company did arrive from the scene to take photographs of the hole. The company was asked about the situation and they said they sent out one of their technicians. A spokesperson for the company said the following: "Although Black Hills Energy does not provide natural gas service in Midway, Arkansas, the local fire department contacted us to assist with their fire investigation. Our technicians responded and detected no natural gas in the area. We will continue to partner with the fire department in their investigation as needed." End quote. After these investigations were carried out, not much more was said about the incident, leaving people to wonder what had caused this strange hole to appear. It wasn't just the hole that confused the firefighters, but the fact that it was also spitting out flames for a considerable time while they were there, something they said they had never seen before. Jim Suchula, the Baxter County Office of Emergency Services Director, said that he'd been working on the case and that a recent analysis of soil samples may help to yield some answers. He approached the Arkansas National Guard units that had specialized equipment to test samples taken from the flaming hole. The fire chief explained that when they arrived in the scene, they could see flames that were between 7 and 10 feet high shooting from the ground, and that it took around an hour for them to stop. Once the samples were tested, the National Guard unit said they found levels of xylene toluene, sulfur dioxide, and ethylene dioxide. They said the following about the discovery: that stuff not normally found in the ground. A groundhog certainly didn't produce that. It has to be man-made and put there. Who or why, I don't know. End quote. They went on to say that these chemicals are something found in flammable gels. They went on to say the following: "We think it was like a chimney effect. As it was burning, it was pulling air through the hole and making the flames rise up. What most likely happened here was that people were messing around with these flammables and it got out of hand. They noted that the discovery was made on private property. Whoever added in these chemicals probably didn't see much of an effect. Then suddenly the hole opened up and the chimney effect happened, causing flames to be spat out. Officials said they're glad they could get to the bottom of this mystery, and just said that they're glad that nobody got hurt, but also issued a warning saying that these flammables should not be played with. So what do you make of this interesting discovery? Have you ever heard of Easter Island? It's a special territory off the coast of Chile, where under 10,000 people reside. It's one of the most remote islands in the world, where mainly Rapa Nui is spoken alongside some Spanish. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysteries about Easter Island, which have puzzled scientists, archaeologists, and other experts for many years. Photos reveal giant Easter Island Maui statues are covered in mysterious symbols. One of the most interesting things about Easter Island is the Maui statues. The country is most famous for these unusual statues that were said to be created by the Rapa Nui people. They were made from volcanic rock and resemble human faces. Most also have bodies that were sculpted, but the bodies were underground and therefore not visible until excavated. A recent discovery in 2012 unearthed a mysterious revelation related to the Maui statues. The bodies attached to the large heads of the statues have distinctive symbols and designs which were originally thought to be tattoos. The depictions were only discovered upon withdrawing the statues and discovering them on the back of the statues' bodies. Experts were confused as to why the bodies were decorated when they were kept underground for no one to see. Were they buried underground on purpose, or did they slowly sink over time? This led to other questions regarding the Maui statues and their varying features. Some face the sea whilst others face inland. Some have heavy red stone hats and others don't. How were they able to move such heavy stones around the island without modern-day machinery? Researchers continue to investigate and seek answers to these questions. But some just don't add up. Looking back to the strange markings on the bodies of the statues, it still remains unclear as to what they mean. Some designs depicted crescent shapes which are believed to represent canoes, but no one can be too sure. Academics have suggested that the figures could represent ancestors of figures that were high up in the tribe. Another theory suggests that the stones were dug up from quarries on the island, decorated at the quarry site, and then walked over to the different spots throughout the island. They are believed to be set up around the island to act as guardians that would protect the inhabitants from any danger. After further investigation and looking at other reasons behind the markings, it could have something to do with past farming methods. People believe that the statues could have been sculpted when digging deep within the quarry in order to find the most fertile soil. The statues themselves may have been kept as a symbol of food production, but there are no definitive answers. Could the writing be linked to this hypothesis? Although we may not ever know what the markings on the statues are, how they got there, and why the statues were placed in certain ways, experts are continuously working to uncover an explanation. Do you think we'll ever find out in this lifetime? It's difficult to say, but with the rapid scientific evolution we've seen in recent years, we may not be too far off from finding out. The mystery of the Rongorongo. The next mystery from Easter Island is that of the Rongorongo. Rongorongo is a form of writing that was discovered by Eugene Irode, who arrived at Easter Island as a missionary in 1864. During his time on the island, he came across a shocking discovery. Every hut was home to a piece of wood or a stick that had hieroglyphic characters written all over it. The drawings depict many different animals that are carved in with sharp stones. While these items are held onto, no one pays much attention to them in particular, which left Irode wondering if there's significant meaning behind what's written. The name itself is interesting and could possibly mean more than originally thought. The name is from Rapa Nui language and means to recite, to declaim, to chant out. Since the wooden tablets were mostly found somewhat damaged with parts burned and weathered over the years, it's been challenging to determine what they truly mean. In order to gain a clear perspective on these ancient artifacts, it's important to know just what period of time they came from. Unfortunately, it's been near impossible to determine a specific date, and the closest experts have landed on is the 13th century, which would have been when forest clearing happened on the island. How did they stumble upon that time period? One of the glyphs appeared to be an Easter Island palm, which had disappeared from the island in 1650. That means the scripts must be at least that old. Further examination pointed to an even later time period. Taking the timeline into account, it's easy to see how decoding the glyphs has been a demanding and strenuous task. When looking at the Rongorongo under the impression that it's writing, many other factors impact uncovering what was being communicated. There is still a limited number of illustrations, text to examine, and the lack of other sources with the same writing to provide context. With so little information surrounding the Rongorongo, it's challenging to come to any conclusions. One theory has proposed that it could be proto-writing, meaning that the symbols may provide meaning but might not necessarily be linguistic content. Under this theory, the Rongo may have simply been used as a decoration or to help with memory. Whilst we still have no answers when it comes to the Rongorongo, it's interesting to see how it could have been used to pass down stories or events to the next generations. With time, we may come across more information. Tukuturi. The last mystery from Easter Island is about the Maui statues, but this time we're just looking at one. This one in particular is known as Tukuturi, and it stands out among the other Maui statues for one very obvious reason. It's in a completely different position. The Tukuturi Maui is found kneeling with its hands on its legs, whilst the others are standing upright. Besides that main difference, it's also much smaller, has a rounder head and possibly a beard on its face. The Tukuturi was also carved from a different stone that was a reddish color and has a few other differences that people have noted over the years. Archaeologists discovered the Tukuturi Maui in 1955 at the Reino Raku Quarry, which is a place where no other statues were found. This begs one question. Why was it left on its own? Was it a famous figure? One legend states that it is a famous Maori sculpture that was sent to watch over future generations. Others believe that the statue may have been based off a chorus singer. This is because the posture seen with the Tukuturi had been sued by men and women who were part of a chorus in festivals known as the Rue. Other features, such as the potential facial hair on the statue, resemble that of what a chorus singer would have looked like. When comparing the Tukuturi to the other Maori statues, experts have tried to determine which came first. Researchers haven't come across enough evidence yet, but some currently believe that the Tukuturi might be from a later time period. With that being said, the most popular belief is that it was the first statue and it was left in the quarry instead of being moved to where the others generally reside, due to possible damage to the statue. Another unusual theory believes that it's connected the Tangata Manu cult of Easter Island, making it the last Maui to have been created. Many critical pieces of the puzzle are still missing, so we'll have to work with the theories we currently have for now. It's definitely interesting to see all that we've uncovered so far, and who knows what information will reveal itself in the future. Easter Island has proven to be a very perplexing and curious place in the world. What do you make of these unusual discoveries on Easter Island? Astronomers have one of the most interesting jobs, watching the sky and identifying the vast amounts of objects the universe has to offer. But sometimes an anomaly shows up that needs to be investigated further. One of these strange anomalies was spotted by amateur researchers on the asteroid Itokawa. Hayabusa was a robotic spacecraft developed by the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency and was created with the sole purpose of traveling to the near-Earth asteroid Itokawa. After flying through the cosmos for over 2 years and eventually landing on the asteroid in 2005, it started to take detailed photographs and carry out scientific investigations. Interestingly, in some of these images, amateur researchers pointed out a large-looking object on the tip of the asteroid. What's odd is that this seems to have suddenly appeared, as in previous photographs it wasn't there. Not many people have seen these photos, but those who have seen them have put forward some interesting explanations. Some can't understand how such a large object just suddenly appeared on the end of the asteroid, or there's some who've said that the object is causing somewhat of an illusion, and that the spherical object isn't actually a dome or an object protruding out of the asteroid, but is actually a crater and was likely created by a piece of debris hitting it. Others, though, disagree with this and have said that on various asteroids you can see these strange objects. One believer said the following: "It's frustrating that when you question these things you're looked at as being crazy. The truth is many of these asteroids show these types of anomalies protruding outwards. I'm not saying it's aliens, but I think it should be investigated." End quote. As with the majority of these discoveries, not much information can be gathered from what this photograph shows. leaving amateur researchers to give their opinions on what they think the photograph is showing. NASA said the following about the mission on their website. The first mission to return a sample of material from the surface of a near-Earth object, the Japanese Hayabusa spacecraft, which also carried a miniature lander named Minerva, was originally designed as a technology demonstration mission. One of the technologies it tested was an efficient iron propulsion system, which it used successfully during its 2-year journey to asteroid Itacawa. On the 25th of September 2005, the Hayabusa spacecraft touched down on the surface of the asteroid Itacawa, marking only the second time in history that a spacecraft has descended to the surface of an asteroid. End quote. Amateur researchers have said this is just one in a long line of discoveries that have been made outside of our planet. One of the most interesting planets is that of Mars. With it being in our solar system and also being so close to us in terms of space, scientists have been carrying out various tests and even sending advanced rovers and satellites to map the terrain. This has given scientists a much better understanding of this environment and what else happens here on a day-to-day basis. However, various photographs that have been sent back over the years have only caused more confusion about what's really going on, as various amateur researchers have suggested there could be life on Mars. Whilst NASA and other space agencies have made it clear about their stance of alien life on Mars, they've come forward and said that at this moment there is strong evidence to suggest that water is on Mars, and that this is through the discoveries of hydrated salts and its genes. However, water in liquid form is yet to be discovered or confirmed. A lot of evidence and research points to the existence of water on Mars, such as the findings of the European Mars Express. This craft, using an advanced radar system known as MARS's, found that Mars's south pole holds a subsurface anomaly that strongly suggests that an entire lake, thought to be around 12.4 miles or 20 kilometers across and at least 1 meter deep, is underneath the pole. Very recent evidence has found that there is certain places on Mars which could potentially hold liquid water given the perfect conditions. The reason that ice water is plentiful on Mars, but currently there's no evidence of liquid water, is because Mars' atmosphere is incredibly thin. So as soon as any ice would melt, it would immediately turn to vapor. Back in 2000, someone discovered something strange in a photograph sent back from Mars. The photograph in question has since become known as the Tower, and is used by people to prove that there are or once were beings living on the red planet. At the time when the images was public, many people downloaded it and conducted various tests to try and find out more. What they discovered was this object was massive. Not only that, but it was very consistent with buildings we see here on Earth. This caused some to suggest that what we're looking at is some type of massive building. Those who have carried out measuring techniques suggested that it measures 3.9 miles or 6.3 kilometers. This only caused more confusion, as how could such a massive skyscraper-like object form naturally? To further back up this claim, those who discover the object point to the massive shadow that can be seen being casted behind it, proving that whatever this is, it's big enough to cause a shadow. It's important to note as well that this photograph was taken by the Mars Orbiter Surveyor. This was launched on the 7th of November 1966. It had taken years to build this incredible piece of equipment, but it's noted by NASA as being the first successful mission to the red planet in over 20 years. The orbiter finally reached the red planets back in March of 1999, where it would go on to map the terrain from low altitude. Since this date, it sent back thousands of images. Interestingly, many of which haven't been studied by researchers or scientists, and which some say do hide interesting anomalies that could help us to understand the planet's environment. This early surveyor was able to tell scientists a lot about Mars's surface, environment, atmosphere, and interior. The camera that was on the Mars orbiter was able to send back some incredible images that would help us to understand how we would approach the planet in the future when it came to missions. So what do you make of this interesting photograph sent back from the Hive user? Do you think this object belongs to something mysterious? Or is it just a natural formation created by pieces of space debris? Scientific advances have enabled us to discover a range of fascinating events. These discoveries can increase our understanding of past, present, and future events regarding our planet. With climate change such a hot topic, these discoveries can help us delve into what happened in the past and what could happen in the future. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 recent scientific discoveries. Ancient tree with record of Earth's magnetic field reversal in its rings discovered. The Earth's magnetic field is a key component to life on Earth, and this is believed to have changed multiple times since the formation of the planet, with little understood about how it works. The movement of the magnetic North Pole is currently accelerating, heading from the Canadian Arctic to Russia. Looking back at the last magnetic field reversal event could give insights into what and how it will happen as it continues to progress. In 2019, an ancient tree in New Zealand was unearthed that gave a glimpse at the most recent near-polar reversal. The tree, Anagathis australis, was uncovered during an excavation for a geothermal power plant expansion in Gawa on the North Island. The uncovered kauri tree is 16 meters long and weighs 60 tons, and was preserved in clay around 9 meters underground. The tree was part of a large forest that covered a significant part of the North Island. It is believed that only 4% of this tree remains after Europeans came to the island and cut down a vast number of trees in 1820. Tree rings can give insights into the past. Dendrochronology has been used to study climate change, date artifacts, and much more. The tree is believed to be between 41,000 and 42,500 years old, and the ring suggests that during its 1,500 years, the tree lived through the Lexus excursion, where the magnetic North Pole drifted down to the southern hemisphere and back up again. This is the first time a tree that lived through the event has been discovered. The tree is now being studied, aiming to give scientists an idea of what will happen during the next reversal or near reversal. Chris Turney of the University of South Wales, head of the team analyzing the tree, has stated that because the Earth's magnetic field has a major effect on how much radiocarbon is formed in the upper atmosphere, these analyses will allow us to investigate the magnitude and rate of change when the magnetic field reversed during the Lacon. Something not possible before and of great interest given recent changes in the Earth's magnetic field. What will this tree reveal about the last pole reversal and potentially the next one? Will it warn us about climate change? Ozone hole near South Park shrinks to smallest size ever. Humanity's impact on the Earth is well known, and our impact on the ozone layer is one that has incited significant action since it was growing year on year. In 2019, the hole in the ozone layer near the South Pole shrunk to its smallest size since 1982. It is not actually a hole, but merely an area with depleted levels of ozone. Specifically an area in which ozone concentrations drop below the historical threshold of 222 Dobson units. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, polar orbiting satellites are used to monitor the ozone hole. According to NASA and the NOAA, the Antarctic ozone hole was affected by abnormal weather patterns in 2019, limiting ozone depletion, which led to the smallest ozone hole since 1982. Ozone, which is comprised of 3 oxygen atoms, occurs naturally in the stratosphere and adds protection to the planet from ultraviolet solar radiation, which can cause cataracts and skin cancer. Stratospheric ice clouds form in the Antarctic when temperatures fall below -78 Celsius, and these clouds promote production of chlorine and bromine, which when combined with sunlight in the Antarctic spring causes a reaction that leads to a loss of ozone, resulting in the Antarctic ozone hole. The annual ozone hole reached its peak extent of 6.3 million square miles on September 8, 2019, and then shrank to less than 3.9 million square miles for the remainder of September and October. Unusually warm weather led to the smaller ozone depletion. Similar weather patterns in 1988 and 2002 also resulted in atypically small ozone holes. Normal weather conditions tend to result in a maximum area of about 8 million square miles in late September or early October. The 2019 weather systems were unusually strong, warming the Antarctic stratosphere. It was 16 Celsius warmer than average during September, a time where ozone destruction is normally at its peak. According to NASA, it was the warmest September for 40 years. The Antarctic polar vortex was also weakened, moving its center, which is normally over the South Pole. This slowed vortex rotation, allowing air to sink in the lower stratosphere, which impacted the ozone hole in 2 ways. It minimized the persistence of polar stratospheric clouds and allowed ozone-rich air from elsewhere in the southern hemisphere to travel to above the Antarctic ozone hole area. There is a massive variability each year with the size of the ozone hole. Whilst 2019 was the smallest on record since 1982, The 2020 hole is above average for the last decade. On September 20th, 2020, the annual ozone hole reached its peak area at 9.6 million square miles, driven by persistent cold temperatures and strong circumpolar winds, similar to the value recorded in 2018. However, by approximately 2070, scientists expect the ozone hole to shrink back to the size it was in 1980. Astronomers identified 24 superhabitable planets. It is possible there are planets out there that are more suited to life than our very own Earth. Astronomers have identified 24 potential superhabitable planets that were the subject of a study published in the journal Astrobiology called In the Search for a Planet Better Than Earth, Top Contenders for a Superhabitable World. The planets have the potential to support more biodiversity and biomass than the planet we currently call home. It is worth noting that habitability does not mean these planets definitely have life, as the conditions for the origin of life is potentially more stringent than the persistence of life, merely the conditions that would be conducive to life as we know it. Washington State University scientist Dirk Schultzmachoff partnered with astronomers René Heller of the Max Planck Institute for Solar System Research and Edward Gwynn Villanova University to create a superhabitable criteria to determine which of the 4,500 exoplanets outside of our solar system qualify. The key criteria of a superhabitable planet are an age of 5 to 8 billion years, a mass of 1.5 times that of Earth and 10% larger, a surface temperature averaging 5 Celsius higher than Earth, a moist atmosphere with 25 to 30% O2 levels with lots of shallow water areas and archipelagos, a large moon at a moderate distance and has plate tectonics as well as a strong protective geomagnetic field. The researchers looked at G-stars similar to our Sun, which has a lifespan of around 10 billion years, which is relatively short-lived for a star. They also looked at K-dwarf stars, which are cooler and have lifespans between 20 and 70 billion years. This will give orbiting planets more time to advance. None of the 24 planets met all of the criteria, but one 3,000 light-years away met 4, which would make it more habitable than Earth. Dirk Schultzmachoff said that we are so focused on finding a mirror image of Earth that we may overlook a planet that is even more well-suited for life. The study's authors argue that, with regard to the search for extrasolar life, potentially superhabitable planets may deserve higher priority for follow-up observations than most planets. The study could help focus future observation efforts such as NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, the Louvre Space Observatory, and the European Space Agency's Plato Space Telescope. We are currently unable to get to any of these superhabitable planets, but they give an idea of where to look in the future, the potential to see if there are any conditions to create or sustain life elsewhere and answer the age-old question of are we alone in the universe. But what do you make of these 3 recent discoveries? Today's technology has allowed us to view the universe from the comfort of our home. There's tools that can be used to help us see the wonders of the universe, and one of the most famous ones is that of Google Sky. Google decided they wanted somewhere where people could explore the far reaches of our universe. Using Google Sky, you can see many famous celestial bodies, and over the years, it's provided us with some breathtaking views. However, some people have come forward and said they found some interesting things. These anomalies have gone on to create various conversations about what could actually be out in space. Google Sky says the reason you can see these incredible sights is thanks to the advanced Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble is the first optical telescope to be placed in space. Over the years, scientists have used Hubble to observe the universe in distant planets. This telescope has sent us back some incredible images over the years. The Hubble explores the universe 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it's operated by a team of specialists on the ground. This recent Google Sky discovery, however, had some saying that it looked very similar to a Oumuamua, which gained popularity as being the first known interstellar object that was detected traveling through our solar system. This mysterious visitor was discovered back on the 19th of October in 2017, and astronomers and the scientific world were amazed and puzzled when they noticed the strange-looking objects traveling through our solar system. The object in question had come from another solar system and was quickly given the name of Oumuamua. What stood out about this object, though, is that it seemingly appeared out of nowhere, which in turn caused many to ask questions. When researchers were able to lock onto the object, they could see it traveling around the sun and then shooting away again. This recent photograph has caused some to speculate whether this and Oumuamua are the same thing, suggesting that these mysterious interstellar objects are scattered throughout our solar system. This particular one was discovered close to the Orion constellation. The person who discovered the object said they were messing around with Google Sky and zoomed in really quick on Orion. They took a screenshot of the object as they thought it looked interesting before closing down the app. They then showed a few people, and it was them who made the connection between the two objects. One of the first things you'll notice is that they are very similar in appearance. Although some at first suggested that Oumuamua could have been of extraterrestrial origin, scientists and researchers then came forward and said the most likely explanation for Oumuamua is that it's a comet. However, some have questioned this, as NASA themselves have reported that the interstellar visitor is 10 times as long as it is wide, and that this aspect ratio is far greater than any asteroid or comet observed in our solar system to date. This information has caused people to put forward their own theories, which range from Oumuamua being extraterrestrial in origin to it being an advanced satellite that was passing through. Another interesting thing to note about this object was that researchers said that it showed a really strong non-gravitational acceleration. This tells the researchers that its motion indicated that gravity was not the only thing dictating its path. For years, people have been detailing their encounters with Bigfoot. This elusive creature has divided people over the years. Some think that the humanoid exists in small groups, while others have said that it's not possible that such a large humanoid exists. They point to the fact that there would need to be a large group of them to survive, and if this was the case, they would be reported a lot more often. Others, however, disagree with this notion, and have said that for thousands of years now man has been encountering these giants. All over the globe there have been reports of them, from Tibet, America, and even Australia. There's no shortage of stories. Ancient myths credit these creatures as having run-ins with humans, and when this happens it doesn't usually end well. Some have even managed to record some of their mysterious calls, and when given to scientists they've said that humans are unable to make these kinds of noises. One of the things that researchers have struggled to do, however, is present hard evidence. Although Carson footprints have been taken in various national parks across the world, researchers and skeptics have said these can easily be faked, and that it doesn't prove that an unknown humanoid is walking our planet. What's interesting, though, is discoveries have been made by some that could counter this argument. One of these comes in the form of an actual hand. The photograph was posted with the following statement: "As if 2020 couldn't get any more strange, a buddy of mine found what appears to be a Bigfoot hand getting chewed on by a cougar." When the photograph reached Bigfoot groups, it generated a lot of discussion, with the majority of people believing that this hand was the real deal and that it did belong to a genuine Bigfoot. As some have pointed out, it's not known what happened to the hand after the photo was taken, but some reports suggest that the cougar returned to finish off the meal. One of the biggest questions when it comes to Bigfoot is why we don't see their remains. Some have pointed out that if they're sharing our planet, we should be seeing them more often. Bigfoot researchers have countered this, though, and explained they stay away from humans, further saying that they inhabit the dense forest regions of our planet, being mostly found in national parks and other large forested areas. Some noted, however, that every so often someone will come across Bigfoot remains, but they have usually been chewed up by a local predator. Others went on to say that they have seen similar-looking things while exploring national parks. So is this the proof that we've finally been waiting for? Well, according to some, no. Some have offered an explanation for what we're seeing. One idea is that instead of belonging to Bigfoot, it actually belongs to a beaver. Some, however, have said the object appears to be too big to fit the description of a beaver. As of right now, though, not much information has been released about the photograph, so a positive ID cannot be assigned to the hand. Interestingly, many have reported their own sightings in national parks across the planet. Going back, the Washington State Department of Transportation posted the following on Twitter: "Sasquatch spotted. I'm not superstitious, just a little stitious. Have you noticed something strange on our Sherman Pass SR-20 webcam before? If you look close by the trees on the left, there looks to be something. Might be a Sasquatch. We'll leave that up to you." One person went on to say the following: "Is the story that is a cardboard cutout that you guys put there because you were bored and wanted to generate some social media presence?" To which the Washington State Department of Transportation replied with the following: "It's not a cardboard cutout. I've never been up to their camera. There have been items put in front of cameras by locals in the area for 15 plus years. I just happened to notice this the other day when I was going to give a road conditions update on the pass. Then this happened. They also said that it wasn't photoshopped. One person said the following: although this photo may turn out to be fake, I've seen many mysterious creatures in this region. I'm someone that spent over 20 years in the outdoors and I've only encountered 4 of them. They are very elusive. They'll be gone before you can get close to them. This is why they are notoriously difficult to photograph. I've tried every single time I encountered one, and each time the photograph looks terrible. They move fast and are usually too far away to be picked up in a detailed image. I have no doubt in my mind that these ancient creatures exist in small clusters around our planet. I think soon that we will get proof. However, in all my experiences, they don't seem keen on humans and always try their best to keep a distance. Others, however, said the image showed gaps in the trees, and this is creating an illusion that something is there. Perhaps one of the most interesting Bigfoot stories is that of Albert Osmond. The year was 1924. The gold rush may have been over, but that did not stop Swedish immigrant Albert Osmond from giving gold prospecting a go. After spending years in construction and logging, Osmond decided it was time for something different, and he thought he might as well get a little vacation out of it while he was at it. Near Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. The area was lush with trees and surrounded by mountains, the perfect getaway from his recent year-long construction job. He hired a local indigenous man as a guide to the head of the Toba Inland. The guide was a talkative man and told Osmond tales of the area. One tale even involved the alleged gold mine. According to him, there was a heavy drinking white man who would come and go from the mine, always having gold to spare. But one time he never came back from the mine. They suspected that a Sasquatch had taken him out. He described the creature as having hair all over its body, but stood upright like people, and they were big, approximately 8 feet tall, big enough to leave 2-foot-long drags. Osman had never heard of such a creature and brushed the tales of Sardar's folklore. Once the guard had dropped him at the site, Osman asked him to come back for him in 3 weeks. He would camp back at that particular spot once he was finished with his prospecting trip. Over the next week, he walked his way over 10 miles into the wilderness on the hunt for the elusive gold mine. After some time, he came to the spot that he deemed perfect for his permanent setup. He was only there one single night when strange things started to happen. Osman awoke after a deep, heavy sleep to discover that his entire campsite had been disturbed. He hadn't heard anything the night before and blamed it on an animal. On night 2, his backpack had been emptied. He noted that food had been taken. Instead of going out to look for gold, Osman hung around the camp, hoping to catch a glimpse of the culprit, but nothing showed itself. On the 3rd night, he was determined to stay awake. He needed to know what was lurking in the darkness around his site. That, however, proved to be impossible. Haven't obviously fallen asleep. He was awoken by something picking him off the ground, still cocooned in his sleeping bag. After being dragged and carried for what he believes was 3 hours, Osmond was finally dropped. He described hearing 4 voices, speaking in a language he didn't understand, but it was too dark to make them out. As the sun came up, however, he got a good look. There was 4 of them, and he described them as an old man and an old woman, along with a young boy and a girl. He estimated the old woman to be over 7 feet tall and 500 pounds. The old man was even bigger than that. He was sure that his gun would not affect the large man, except for maybe angering him. So he sat and contemplated his escape. The family of Sasquatch kept him in a small valley for days, occasionally bringing him sweet roots as food. The young one who started out shy eventually took an interest in him. He made them water ladles and tossed them old snuff cans to play with, and that's when he came up with his escape plan. He'd once heard a story of a man blinding a bull by throwing snuff into his eyes. Next, he threw the young boy Sasquatch another snuff box, this time with a teaspoon of snuff inside it. The boy tasted the snuff and then took it to the old man. It was obvious they enjoyed the taste of it and came back for more. Osman then knew he had to get the old man to eat the whole box of snuff and then hopefully he could escape. Because of the interest in the snuff, the old man kept getting closer to Osman, eventually grabbing a box and pouring it into his mouth. He swallowed it in one gulp before licking the box clean. After a few minutes, the old man became sick. Osmond saw this opening and ran. Using his rifle, he shot warning shots as he escaped. He miraculously was not followed. He made his way down the mountain and finally into a nearby camp. He immediately told the locals that he was lost and did not mention the sight of a Sasquatch until much later, fearing being called crazy. Needless to say, he never tried prospecting again. For years, ancient humans would have looked up to the night sky. One object they were well aware of was that of the moon. It's been detailed throughout the ages, and during the space race we were able to put man on the moon. However, ever since this moment, many strange things have been put forward by various people, questioning man's intention on the moon, and that if there's other things going on here that we are being kept in the dark about. One structure said to be present on the moon is that of a pyramid. In fact, amateur researchers have said the moon's surface is full of them, and that this could prove that it's not only humans that's interested in this celestial body. Theories started to run wild after NASA shared an interesting photograph taken by Apollo 17. Interestingly, the space agency listed this photograph as blank, and when first looking at it, this does appear to be the case. However, when people increase the brightness and contrast, it appears that this photograph is not blank and features a rather large-looking structure which many have compared to a pyramid. One thing that is certain is that these images are genuine. They were uploaded by NASA and can still be seen today. Although some have put forward the idea that these images could just be lunar equipment, others are not so sure. Due to this, it's only caused researchers to become more interested in these anomalies, causing some to spend countless hours searching through old images in order to try and find similar anomalies. Those who have dedicated their time to this have found something interesting, and this is that these pyramid-like structures seem to actually be quite common on the lunar surface. Interestingly, the most recent pyramid to have been discovered on the moon was made back in 2019. Photographs soon started to make their rounds on social media, with various theories being put forward in order to try and explain what people are seeing. It seems that there are two types of people when it comes to these anomalies. There are those that think these structures should be taken seriously and that scientists and researchers should investigate them further, while others have said that the most likely explanation for what people are seeing is lunar mounts and even pareidolia. It's also been suggested that the angle of the images is hard to study, with some saying that these pyramid-like structures could be tiny. However, this has been countered by some as they have said you can compare them to their surroundings, and some of them are in fact massive. Believers in these images have also said that it's clear what these structures are, and that pareidolia can't be used in this argument as some of the images are clear. Aeronautics and Space Administration have denied there's any pyramids on the moon and have explained these structures as being part of the lunar surface or that of pareidolia. So what do you guys make of these pyramid-like structures on the lunar surface? Do you think they are genuine or just part of the moon? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Recently, various people across the planet have been detailing mysterious things in our sky. People have described them as looking like asteroids. But what's odd is that some people have said that as these objects are coming towards our planets, they suddenly change direction. This has caused some to speculate that these objects are not asteroids, but rather something more mysterious. This photograph was recently published to MoveOn, which stands for the Mutual UFO Network. They're responsible for keeping a record of thousands of UFO sightings that get reported across the planet. The eyewitness said the following: "It was 918 on the 17th of March, 2020. We were in lockdown due to what's going on, and Bristol Airport was only receiving 2 flights a day from Dublin. I know this because my wife is an immigration and customs official at the airport. In normal times, planes and trails across the sky would be a commonplace. In 2019, we had a loft extension. This is now our bedroom, and we have some fantastic views over the city. On the 17th of May, I looked out our west-facing scarlet window and saw the strange line going up vertically near a block of flats. I showed my wife the line. Then, as she stepped away, I caught a glimpse of a black dome saucer-like object sitting just above what I assumed was a chemical trail. I called my wife, and when she came back, the object had reached the clouds and continued up. Oddly, In the darker clouds, the trail seemed to be lighter as it went up. The movement of the object was pulse-like. It spurted for a distance, then slowed, then spurted again. This seemed to be the pattern of propulsion. It was vertical, so not similar to the aircrafts that would normally fly over horizontally. I then checked the flight radar app. No planes were flying in the area due to lockdown, apart from a flight which was at Bristol Airport from Dublin. I then checked my night sky app, which wasn't showing any abnormalities. Around an hour later, Venus became visible slightly to the right. I had been watching Venus move across the west for the last 3 months, so was very familiar. No military vehicles were nearby on flight radar, and there was no known rocket launches in Cardiff or Bristol, because rocket launches don't happen in the UK. A drone seemed unlikely given the trails. As mentioned so far, many people have come forward in detail to seeing similar-looking objects in our sky. Some have put forward the idea that these objects could be from space. NASA and the European Space Agency have reported several objects that have come close to our planet in the last 12 months. Interestingly, these are only the ones we know about. NASA hoping quite open about the facts that every so often an asteroid will approach us that we're not aware of. This happens because the asteroid detection machines don't always pick up every celestial body. And this has made some suggest this is what's happening here. Others went down the route of suggesting that these objects could be UFO related. There's not a country in the world that hasn't reported a UFO. And this has caused some to suggest that this is what people are seeing. As with most of these reports, not much information can be found before they vanish, and it leaves the few people that saw them wanting answers. For years now, NASA telescopes have been picking up on various celestial objects. Although the majority of these are mundane, there are some that have baffled people. We are surrounded by billions of galaxies, and inside each of those galaxies is hundreds of billions of planets. It's one of the reasons why researchers have said that life on other planets is very likely. However, one thing they've noted is that it's unlikely to be how we imagine it. Each planet could potentially host complex life and be nothing like life on planet Earth. One recent photograph that's caused a lot of confusion is this one. It was photographed close to the Orion constellation. However, various people have put forward different theories for what this object is. Some have said that it could have been a cosmic explosion, whereas others suggested it could be of extraterrestrial origin. Further saying that if you look closely, the anomaly appears to be semi-transparent. One person described the anomaly as looking like a jellyfish. Others agreed and said that it could be a giant organism floating through space. One amateur astronomer said that it doesn't look like anything he's seen before. However, as some have pointed out, it's most likely just a space anomaly and is not linked to any extraterrestrial life. The same can't be said for mysterious signals that have been detected deep in space. Back in 2009, top researchers at the Goodall Space Flight Center sent a device up into space via a giant balloon known as ARCADE. ARCADE was an acronym that stood for Absolute Radiometer for Cosmology, Astrophysics, and Diffuser Missions, which details its mission as being that of a searching device capable of picking up diffuse radiation caused by the universe's earlier stars. It was a huge surprise then that instead of picking up these weak signals, the ARCADE device captured data that scientists have described as a space roll. Although a large amount of radio waves caused by synchrotron radiation was expected by researchers at the Goddard Space Flight Center, what was recovered and analyzed turned out to be radio waves 6 times the normal amount expected to be heard, as well as their origin points being from that of galaxies 2.5 million light-years away. This has led many to speculate the possibility that perhaps this enormous amount of background radio waves found in our universe could be that of extraterrestrial civilizations and their frequencies sent out into the vacuum of space. This could very well be the case considering our radio wave frequencies have been spreading out like a bubble from Earth since the first transmissions. These were sent out a little over 100 years ago, and given the fact that these extraterrestrial civilizations could predate us by millions of years, we could be picking up on the faintest signals that have reached us over a vast distance of both space and time. Scientists struggle to find any other cause for this mystery, and have left many wondering if whether or not we are truly alone in the universe, or we are merely the latest species to tune into an old-age galactic conversation. So what do you make of these anomalies?